Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Long Road Home. Alan Hayes stood in his kitchen, watching his wife Robin methodically prep the Thanksgiving turkey with the precision she brought to everything in her life. As a pharmacist, she approached even cooking like a science experiment, measuring, timing, calculating. It was one of the things he loved about her. "You're nervous," Robin said without looking up, her dark hair falling forward as she worked. "That obvious?" Alan managed a half-smile. At 42, he'd built a successful career as a civil engineer, designed buildings that withstood earthquakes, but the thought of seeing his daughter after 3 years made his hands tremble. "You've checked your phone 17 times in the last hour." Alan set the phone down. "Emma's flight lands in 2 hours. Danielle actually said yes this time. I can't believe it's happening." Robin wiped her hands and crossed to him, touching his face. "Tell me about her. Really tell me. I've only seen pictures." So Alan told her. About Emma's laugh that sounded like bells, about how she used to help him draft blueprints with crayons at age 6, about Saturday mornings spent building elaborate Lego cities, about how his divorce from Danielle 4 years ago had turned into a custody war that left him demolished. "Danielle played the court like a violin," he said, bitterness creeping in despite himself. "Painted me as the workaholic who neglected his family. Her lawyer twisted every late night at the office into evidence of abandonment. I lost everything that mattered." "Not everything," Robin said softly. "You're getting your daughter back." But Alan remembered those custody hearings with painful clarity. Danielle's new partner, Gregorio Blair, sitting behind her in support, a smooth-talking man who'd appeared 6 months before the divorce was even final. Danielle had presented herself as the stable parent, the nurturing mother, while portraying Alan as absent and cold. The judge had bought it. For the first year, he'd gotten supervised visitation. Then Danielle moved 3 states away, Ohio to Arizona, claiming a job opportunity. The visits became holidays only. Then Emma started canceling. Phone calls grew shorter, less frequent. Danielle always had reasons. Emma was busy with school, with friends, with therapy for the trauma of the divorce. "I almost gave up," Alan admitted. "Started thinking maybe Emma was better off without me disrupting her life. Then 6 months ago, you kicked my ass." Robin smiled. "I simply suggested that perhaps the man who could engineer a 40-story building could figure out how to stay connected with his daughter." He'd started sending letters, not texts or emails that Danielle could intercept, but actual handwritten letters about his projects, his new marriage, his life. Asking questions about Emma's interests, her dreams. No pressure, no guilt trips, just presence. 2 months ago, Emma had written back. A short note, but it was hers. And last month she called, said she wanted to come for Thanksgiving. Even Danielle, surprisingly, had agreed without much fight. What if she's different? Alan voiced his deepest fear. What if 3 years is too long? What if she doesn't? "Alan," Robin's voice was firm. "You're her father. That bond doesn't break. It bends, it stretches, but it doesn't break." Chapter 2. Something's wrong. Emma walked through the airport terminal like a ghost, and Alan's heart seized. She was 14 now, taller than he remembered, her blonde hair longer. But something was off. "Dad." Her voice was flat as she hugged him, her movements mechanical. "Emma, sweetheart, I've missed you so much." He pulled back to look at her. Her eyes seemed distant, pupils slightly dilated despite the bright terminal lights. "How was the flight?" "Fine, I guess. I don't really remember." She blinked slowly, as if struggling to focus. Robin extended her hand with a warm smile. "Emma, I'm so happy to finally meet you. Your dad talks about you constantly." "Hi," Emma said, shaking hands with a weak grip. Her hand trembled slightly. In the car, Alan kept glancing at his daughter in the rearview mirror. She stared out the window, barely responding to his questions about school, her friends, her interests. The vibrant girl, he remembered, seemed buried under layers of fog. Just tired from the flight, he told himself, but the words fell hollow. Thanksgiving dinner should have been perfect. Robin had outdone herself. Turkey, stuffing, 3 kinds of pie. But Emma picked at her food, her fork occasionally slipping from her fingers. "Sorry," she mumbled, retrieving it for the third time. "I'm so clumsy lately." "No worries, honey," Alan said, trying to keep his voice light. "Growing pains, right? You've gotten so tall." Emma's response was delayed, like she was processing through water. "Yeah, I guess." Robin had been watching Emma carefully throughout the meal, her pharmacist's eye cataloging details. The slight tremor in Emma's hands, the way she seemed to zone out mid-conversation, staring at nothing. The sluggish responses, the dilated pupils, the dry mouth. Emma had drunk 4 glasses of water during dinner. After they'd finished eating, Emma excused herself to the bathroom. Robin immediately grabbed Alan's wrist, pulling him into the kitchen, her face pale. "We need to go to the police right now," she whispered urgently. "What? What? Didn't you see? That child's been drugged. Systematically, long-term. Alan, those aren't teenage changes or jet lag. Those are symptoms of chronic benzodiazepine use, probably mixed with some kind of antipsychotic. The tremors, the cognitive fog, the dilated pupils, the motor control issues. I see this in patients who've been over-medicated." Alan's blood turned to ice. "That's impossible. Danielle wouldn't." "Look at her, Alan. Really look." Robin's voice was shaking. "Someone has been chemically sedating your daughter. For months, maybe longer." Alan stared at Robin, then back toward the hallway where Emma had gone. His engineer's mind, trained to see structural problems others missed, suddenly saw the cracks. Emma's delayed responses, her vague memory of the flight, the way she'd seemed surprised by her own clumsiness, like it was new. The flatness in her voice, not teenage angst, but pharmaceutical suppression. "Oh God," he breathed. "What do we do? We need to examine her medications. Kids her age don't just develop these symptoms. Someone is giving her something." When Emma returned, Alan kept his voice casual. "Hey, sweetie, did you bring your vitamins? Your mom mentioned you need to take some supplements." "Oh, yeah." Emma's response was automatic, robotic. "In my bag. I need to take them before bed. Gregorio says it's important." "Gregorio?" Alan's jaw tightened. "He manages your medications? He helps Mom. He knows about this stuff. He used to work with medicines or something." Robin and Alan exchanged loaded glances. After Emma went to her room, Robin retrieved the bag and found 3 prescription bottles labeled as vitamin supplements from a doctor Alan had never heard of. Robin's hands shook as she examined them. "This is alprazolam, a powerful anti-anxiety medication. This is quetiapine, an antipsychotic used for bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. And this," she checked the 3rd bottle, "is clonazepam, another benzodiazepine. Alan, these doses would sedate an adult. She's been taking these daily." "The labels say twice daily," Alan read, his voice hollow. "For the past 18 months. She's 14 years old. She shouldn't be on any of these unless she has a severe mental health condition." "Does she?" "No." Emma was always happy, energetic, completely normal. Danielle never mentioned anything. Robin's face was grim. "Because there's nothing wrong with Emma. Someone is keeping her medicated for a reason. And I guarantee this doctor, if he even exists, has never actually examined her. These prescriptions are fake or fraudulent." Alan felt something cold and hard crystallize in his chest. Someone had been poisoning his daughter, keeping her docile, compliant, barely aware. And he had a good idea who. "Gregorio Blair," he said slowly. "Danielle's partner. You said he told Emma he used to work with medicines." "I'll find out exactly who he is," Robin said, already opening her laptop. "But Alan, we need to be smart about this. If we call the police right now, Danielle will lawyer up. She'll claim the medications are legitimate from a real doctor. It'll turn into a he said, she said while Emma gets sent back to them." Alan looked toward Emma's room, where his daughter was probably preparing to take another dose of the drugs that had stolen 3 years of her childhood. "No," he said quietly. "Emma's not going anywhere. And whoever did this to her is going to pay. But you're right. We need to be smart." He thought of the blueprints he'd drawn for earthquake-resistant buildings. The careful calculations, the redundant safety systems, the way you had to anticipate every possible point of failure. We're going to build a case they can't escape from, Alan said. And then we're going to destroy them. Chapter 3. The trap is baited. Emma slept until noon the next day, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion that had nothing to do with travel. When she woke, Alan was waiting with breakfast and a gentle smile. Hey, sweetheart, how do you feel? Tired? Foggy? Emma rubbed her eyes. Is that weird? I feel like I'm always tired lately. Tell me about your routine at home, Alan said carefully. What's a normal day like? As Emma described her life in Arizona, the picture grew darker. Wake up late, groggy. Take morning medications that Gregorio had ready at breakfast. School, but she couldn't remember much about classes, just moving through them in a haze. Home by 3. Afternoon medications. Homework that took hours because she couldn't focus. Evening medications. Bed by 9, but never feeling truly rested. Gregorio says I have anxiety and focus issues, Emma said, her voice uncertain. That I need the medications to be normal. But Dad, I don't remember being anxious before. Was I? When I was younger? Alan's heart broke. No, baby. You were the happiest kid I ever knew. Always laughing, always building things with me, always curious about everything. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I can't remember that. I can barely remember being happy. What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you, Robin said, entering with a tray. But we need to talk about your medications. They spent the next hour carefully explaining, showing Emma the bottles, describing what the drugs actually were. Emma's confusion turned to horror. But Gregorio said these were vitamins. For my development. Mom said I needed them. When did you start taking them? Alan asked, Emma's brow furrowed with effort. After you and Mom got divorced. After Gregorio moved in. He said the divorce had traumatized me, that I needed help processing it. But I don't remember being traumatized. I was sad, but I wasn't. She looked up with terrified eyes. What do they do to me? We're going to figure this out, Alan promised. But first, we need to get these medications out of your system safely. Robin knows how to do this properly. You're going to stay here with us while we help you get better. Mom will never allow that. She'll come get me. Let me worry about your mother, Alan said, his voice hard. He called Danielle that afternoon. Emma's come down with something, fever, nausea. I don't think she should fly. I'll keep her here until she's better, then send her home. Danielle's voice was sharp. Put her on. I want to talk to her. Alan handed the phone to Emma, who'd been coached. Hi, Mom. Yeah, I feel really sick. Dad and Robin are taking good care of me. I'll call you tomorrow. Emma's performance was perfect, groggy, weak, convincing. After hanging up, Alan turned to Robin. That buys us maybe 3 days. What did you find on Gregorio? Robin's research had been thorough. Gregorio Blair, age 45, had worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative for 10 years before being fired 3 years ago. Multiple complaints about unethical practices, pushing doctors to prescribe medications inappropriately, falsifying patient need reports. His license to work in pharmaceutical sales had been revoked. He knows exactly how to get prescriptions without legitimate medical need, Robin said. Probably still has contacts, doctors who will write scripts for cash. And look at this, she pulled up another document. Right after he lost his job, he moved in with Danielle, who had just won full custody of a daughter with a trust fund. Emma's trust, Alan breathed. From my father. His father had set up a trust for Emma when she was born, $2.5 million, accessible when she turned 16 with parental approval or at 18 without. Alan had forgotten about it in the chaos of the divorce, but the documents were ironclad. Emma controlled it, with her legal guardian able to advise but not control the funds. They've been drugging her to keep her compliant, Robin said. So when she turns 16 in 2 years, they can manipulate her into signing it over. A drugged, confused teenager will do whatever her mother and stepfather tell her to do. Alan felt rage, cold, calculated rage, building in his chest. They'd stolen 3 years of his daughter's childhood. 3 years of her memories, her personality, her life. All for money. We need evidence, he said. Enough that they can't spin their way out of it. Over the next 2 days, Alan and Robin worked systematically. Robin consulted with a trusted colleague, Dr. Marcus Mathis, who agreed to conduct private medical tests on Emma. Blood work confirmed what Robin suspected. Emma had dangerous levels of benzodiazepines and antipsychotics in her system, far beyond any therapeutic dose. This is chemical abuse, Dr. Mathis said grimly. She could have had seizures, organ damage, developmental delays. Whoever prescribed this should lose their medical license. They obtained the prescribing doctor's information from the bottle, Dr. Eugene Ruiz. Robin's contacts revealed he'd been flagged multiple times for inappropriate prescribing, barely avoiding license suspension. Emma, meanwhile, was slowly emerging from the fog. Robin carefully reduced the medications under Dr. Mathis's supervision, managing withdrawal symptoms. Each day, Emma became more alert, more like herself, and more angry. "I missed 3 years," she told Alan one night, tears streaming. 3 years where I don't remember anything clearly. School, friends, my own life, it's all just this fuzzy blur. They took that from me, Dad. Why? Money, Alan said honestly. They wanted to control you to get to your trust fund. I hate them, Emma whispered. I hate what they did. I know, baby. Me too. On day 3, Danielle called, demanding Emma come home immediately. Her voice had an edge of panic. She's well enough to fly now. I've booked her a ticket for tomorrow. No, Alan said simply. Excuse me? Emma's staying with me. Permanently. I'm filing for emergency custody. There was a long pause. You can't do that. I have legal custody. We'll see what the court says when they hear about the medication abuse. Another pause, longer this time. I don't know what Emma's told you, but she has legitimate medical conditions. Her doctors prescribed necessary treatment. Dr. Eugene Ruiz? The one flagged for prescription fraud? Prescriptions filled without ever examining Emma? The drugs keeping my 14-year-old daughter sedated 24/7. You're making wild accusations. You have no proof of anything. Actually, Danielle, I have quite a bit of proof. Medical tests, blood work, expert testimony. And I'm going to bury you with it. He hung up, his hand steady. Robin looked at him with concern. She's going to come here. With Gregorio. They're going to try something. I'm counting on it, Alan said, a cold smile crossing his face. Because I'm not just stopping them. I'm destroying them. Completely. He pulled out a notebook filled with engineering calculations and diagrams. But these weren't for buildings. They were for something much more personal. They used pharmaceuticals to trap Emma, he said. So let's see how they like being caught in their own trap. Only this time, they won't see it coming until it's too late. Robin looked at the plans, her expression shifting from concern to grim satisfaction. When do we start? Tomorrow, Alan said. We're going to give them exactly what they want, a chance to explain themselves. And they're going to walk right into a trap they'll never escape from. Chapter 4, Unraveling. Emma sat curled on the couch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders despite the warm Arizona sun streaming through the windows. It was day 6 of her withdrawal, and the tremors had gotten worse before getting better. But her mind was finally clear. I remember now, she said suddenly, making Alan and Robin look up from their coffee. Dad, I remember the first time Gregorio gave me those pills. Alan moved to sit beside her. Tell me everything, sweetheart. It was about a week after Gregorio moved in. Mom said I'd been having nightmares about the divorce, but I wasn't. I was sleeping fine. But suddenly, she was insisting I needed to see this doctor. Only. Emma's brow furrowed. I don't think we ever actually went to a real doctor's office. Gregorio took me to this weird building downtown. There's a nameplate on the door, but the office was mostly empty. Just a desk and a chair. This man came in, asked me a few questions about school, and then Gregorio told him what to write. I remember thinking it was weird, but Gregorio said it was just how behavioral medicine worked. Can you remember what building? Robin asked. I think so. It was near this weird mural of a cactus. Robin was already pulling up maps on her laptop. Within minutes, they'd located the building. More research revealed it was owned by a medical supply company, and one of the offices was rented to Dr. Eugene Ruiz on a part-time basis. He's running a pill mill, Robin said grimly. Sees patients for cash, writes prescriptions without proper diagnosis. Gregorio probably pays him directly. Alan added this to his growing file. Bank records, which he'd obtained through less-than-legal means using his connections from construction projects, showed regular cash withdrawals from Danielle's account, corresponding with Emma's prescription refill dates. "Dad," Emma said quietly, "there's something else. Gregorio films everything." "Films what?" "My sessions with him. He calls them therapy talks. He sits me down and asks me questions about what I remember, what I'm feeling. He recorded all on his phone. Says it's for my doctors to review." "But Dad," her voice dropped to a whisper. "When I was foggy from the medications, he would ask me about money, about Grandpa's trust, about what I'd do with it when I turned 16. And I'd answer whatever he wanted because I couldn't think straight. I remember him smiling when I said I'd probably just let Mom and him handle it because finances are too complicated." Alan felt his rage crystallize into something cold and sharp. "Emma, this is important. Does Gregorio still have these recordings?" "He keeps them on his laptop, in a folder called Emma Progress Notes. Mom doesn't even know about them, I don't think. It's Gregorio's special project." "Good girl," Alan said, hugging her. "You've been so brave." That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Alan made a call to Coy Little, an old friend from his army days who now worked in private security. "I need you to help me acquire something," Alan said. "And I need it done quietly." "How quietly we talking?" "Invisible. No trace." "What's the target?" "A laptop. I'll send you the details." 3 days later, Coy called back. "Your package is ready for pickup. Real interesting footage on there, by the way. Guy's a piece of work." Alan and Robin spent hours watching the recordings. Gregorio's face filled the screen, his voice smooth and manipulative as he questioned a drugged Emma about the trust fund, about her relationship with Alan, about her future plans. In every video, Emma was clearly impaired, slurred speech, vacant eyes, barely coherent. And in every video, Gregorio carefully guided her to say exactly what he wanted. "This is evidence of coercion," Robin said. "A financial exploitation of a minor. Combined with the medical abuse, they're looking at serious criminal charges." "But that's not enough," Alan said. "Criminal charges take time. Lawyers, trials, appeals. They could drag this out for years, and Emma would be caught in the middle. No, I want them destroyed. Completely. I want everyone to know what they are." He began crafting his plan with the precision he brought to structural engineering. Every load-bearing point identified. Every weakness calculated. Every potential failure mode anticipated. "First, we separate them," he explained to Robin. "Danielle and Gregorio only work as a team. Apart, they'll turn on each other. Second, we make them feel safe. People are most vulnerable when they think they've won. Third, we bring in witnesses they can't refute. People who matter to Danielle, whose opinions she can't dismiss." "Her mother," Robin said. "Emma's grandmother." "Exactly. Diane Carpenter still lives in Ohio. She's old school, religious, family-oriented. And she's been kept away from Emma for 3 years, just like me." Danielle told her Emma was too busy with activities to visit. Alan reached out to Diane through a carefully worded letter, explaining that Emma had been staying with him and missed her grandmother terribly. Would she consider coming to Arizona for a family gathering? Danielle need not know. They'd surprise her. Diane's response came quickly. She'd been trying to see Emma for years, but Danielle always had excuses. She'd love to come. "Now we need someone Danielle can't intimidate in a legal setting," Alan continued. "Someone with authority. A mediator," Robin suggested. "Someone who seems neutral, but will be witness to whatever happens." Alan contacted Randall McCoy, a retired family court judge now working as a private mediator. He explained the situation, carefully, with evidence. "I've seen cases like this," Randall said grimly. "Parents drugging kids to keep them compliant. It's evil. I'll help you, but we do this by the book." "That's exactly what I want," Alan assured him. The pieces were falling into place. Alan had evidence, witnesses, and a plan. Now he just needed to get Danielle and Gregorio exactly where he wanted them. Chapter 5. The Pressure Builds. Danielle and Gregorio showed up at Alan's door on a Saturday morning, exactly 10 days after Emma's arrival. Alan had been expecting them, had, in fact, been counting on it. "We're taking Emma home," Danielle said without preamble. She looked tired, her makeup unable to hide the stress lines around her eyes. Today, come in, Alan said calmly, stepping aside. Let's talk about this like adults. Gregorio followed Danielle inside, his eyes scanning the room like a predator assessing territory. He was tall, fit, with perfectly styled dark hair and expensive clothes that seemed at odds with an unemployed pharmaceutical rep. Alan had done more digging. Gregorio had been living off Danielle's income and credit card for 3 years. There's nothing to talk about, Gregorio said, his voice smooth but with an undertone of menace. Emma is a minor. Danielle has legal custody. You're keeping her here illegally. Actually, I filed for emergency custody modification 3 days ago, Alan said, pulling out paperwork, citing medical abuse and endangerment. The hearing is in 2 weeks. Danielle's face went white. Medical abuse? Emma has legitimate conditions that require. Stop. Alan's voice cut like steel. We both know Emma has never been diagnosed with anything except what you and your boyfriend manufactured. We know about the fake appointments, the pill mill doctor, the medications. All of it. You can't prove anything, Gregorio said, but his confidence had cracked slightly. Can I? Alan opened a folder. Here's Emma's medical history from her pediatrician before the divorce. Perfectly healthy, no mental health issues. Here's blood work from last week showing dangerous levels of benzodiazepines and antipsychotics. Here's Dr. Eugene Ruiz's disciplinary record. Should I continue? Danielle looked at Gregorio with sudden suspicion. Eugene said those prescriptions were legitimate. You said he was a real doctor. He is a real doctor, Gregorio said quickly. Emma needed treatment for anxiety after the divorce. You saw how upset she was. I saw a normal kid dealing with her parents' separation, Alan interrupted. What I'm seeing now is a teenager who's been chemically sedated for 3 years. And I'm seeing you too trying to maintain access to her trust fund. This is ridiculous, Danielle said, but her voice wavered. I would never hurt Emma for money. She's my daughter. Then why is Gregorio the one managing her medications? Robin asked, speaking for the first time. Why have you been pulling cash from your account every month to pay for prescriptions under the table? Why haven't you visited a legitimate psychiatrist in 3 years? You've been going through my bank records? Danielle's face flushed with anger. That's illegal. No, what's illegal is drugging a child, Robin said coolly. What's illegal is obtaining prescriptions under fraudulent pretenses. What's illegal is financial exploitation of a minor. Do you want me to continue? Gregorio's jaw tightened. We should go. Get a lawyer. This is harassment. By all means, get a lawyer, Alan said. Because that hearing in 2 weeks? I'm bringing all of this evidence. I'm bringing Emma, who's been off those drugs for 10 days and is finally thinking clearly again. I'm bringing medical experts. You're not just losing custody, Danielle. You're both going to be facing criminal charges. They left shortly after, but not before Gregorio threw Alan a look that promised violence. Alan watched them get into their car, saw them arguing before they even left the driveway. That went better than expected, Robin said. They're rattled, but they're not beaten yet. They'll come back with something. Alan was right. 2 days later, he came home to find his truck keyed, all 4 tires slashed. No witnesses, no cameras caught anything. But Alan knew. He's trying to intimidate me, he told Coy Little over the phone. Make me back down. You want protection? No. I wanted to think it worked. Let him feel confident. The next day, Alan sent Danielle a message. I'm willing to discuss a compromise for Emma's sake. Family mediation? Neutral territory? Danielle's response came quickly, finally seeing sense. When and where? Alan smiled. Hook set. He arranged the mediation for the following Saturday at Randall McCoy's office. Told Danielle it would be just the 4 of them, Danielle, Gregorio, Alan, and Robin, with Randall as neutral mediator. What he didn't tell her was who else would be there. Emma spent the week getting stronger, both physically and mentally. The withdrawal symptoms had mostly passed, leaving behind a sharp, angry teenager who wanted justice. I want to be there, she told Alan. I want to face them. You will, Alan promised. But we're going to do this my way. Trust me. Always, Dad. Diane Carpenter arrived Thursday night, and the reunion with Emma brought both women to tears. Emma's grandmother held her for a long time, then looked at Alan with fierce gratitude. "Thank you for saving her." "Thank Robin," Alan said. "She's the one who recognized what was happening." "Thank you both, then. Now, tell me how I can help destroy the people who did this to my granddaughter." Alan smiled. He liked Diane. Friday night, Alan held a final planning session. Everyone was there: Robin, Emma, Diane, Randall, Coy for security, and Dr. Marcus Mathis, who'd agreed to attend as an expert witness. "Here's how tomorrow goes," Alan explained, spreading documents across the table. "Danielle and Gregorio think they're coming to a simple mediation. They think they'll negotiate visitation, maybe some oversight on Emma's care, and maintain primary custody. They're wrong." He outlined his plan. The others listened, occasionally asking questions, making suggestions. By the end, everyone knew their role. "They've been playing games with my daughter's life for 3 years," Alan said quietly. "Tomorrow, the game ends, and they lose everything." Chapter 6. Setting the Trap. Randall McCoy's office was designed for comfort. Soft lighting, pleasant artwork, a large conference table surrounded by cushioned chairs. It was meant to make people feel at ease during difficult conversations. Alan planned to exploit that. Danielle and Gregorio arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, both dressed professionally. Danielle wore a cream-colored suit that screamed respectable mother. Gregorio had gone for business casual, expensive jeans, tailored blazer. They'd prepared for battle. "Alan, Robin," Danielle said with forced pleasantness, "I'm glad we could do this civilly. For Emma's sake." "For Emma's sake," Alan echoed. "Please sit down. Randall will be with us shortly." They settled around the conference table. Alan poured coffee, made small talk about the weather, played the part of reasonable ex-husband willing to compromise. He watched Gregorio relax slightly, saw Danielle's shoulders drop from their defensive position. Good. They felt safe. Randall entered, an older gentleman with gray hair and a grandfatherly demeanor. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Randall McCoy, and I'll be facilitating today's discussion. Let's start by establishing what we're here to accomplish. We want to ensure Emma receives proper care," Danielle said quickly. "Alan has been making wild accusations about her medical treatment. We're willing to be transparent about everything, show that her care has been appropriate, and work out a visitation schedule that works for everyone." "That sounds reasonable," Randall said. "Alan, your perspective?" "I want what's best for my daughter," Alan said simply. "I want her safe, healthy, and happy. And I want to understand exactly what's been happening for the past 3 years." "Very good. Now, before we begin, I should mention that in mediation sessions like this, I often invite other relevant family members to participate, with both parties' consent, of course. It helps provide fuller context." Danielle frowned. "What other family members?" The conference room door opened. Diane Carpenter walked in. "Mom," Danielle's voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here for my granddaughter," Diane said, her voice cold. "The granddaughter I haven't been allowed to see for 3 years because you always had some excuse." "This is ambush tactics," Gregorio said, standing. "Unprofessional. We're leaving." "Sit down, Mr. Blair," Randall said, his grandfatherly tone gone. "Or would you prefer we hold this conversation in a courtroom instead? I'm still a member of the bar, and I can file an emergency motion faster than you can reach your car." Gregorio slowly sat back down. The door opened again. Emma walked in, flanked by Dr. Mathis. "Emma." Danielle stood, reaching for her daughter. "Baby, are you okay? We've been so worried." "Don't touch me." Emma's voice was sharp, clear, nothing like the foggy teenager from 2 weeks ago. "Don't you dare act like you care." "Emma, I'm your mother. You drugged me." Emma's voice rose. "For 3 years. You and him." She pointed at Gregorio. "You turned me into a zombie, so you could control me." "That's not true," Danielle said, but her voice shook. "You were sick. You needed help." "Tell her, Gregorio." "Perhaps Mr. Blair should wait before speaking," Randall interrupted, "because I'd very much like to see some of his previous recordings first." Alan connected his laptop to the conference room screen. "What recordings?" Danielle asked. Alan pressed play. Gregorio's voice filled the room. "Emma, let's talk about your trust fund again. When you turn 16, you'll have access to $2.5 million. That's a lot of money for a young girl to manage. You'd probably want help with that, right? On screen, a drugged, barely coherent Emma nodded slowly. Yeah, too much can't. So you want your mother and me to help you invest it? Make decisions about it. Uh-huh. You know better. I don't. That's right. We'll take good care of it for you. You don't need to worry about anything. Danielle's face had gone ashen. Gregorio, what is this? It's called financial exploitation, Alan said. He's been documenting Emma's consent to hand over her trust fund. Except it's not real consent. It's coerced from a drug minor. Alan played another clip, and another, each one showing Gregorio carefully manipulating Emma, guiding her to say exactly what he wanted while she was impaired. I didn't know, Danielle whispered, staring at Gregorio. You said you were doing therapy sessions with her. You said you were helping. He was helping himself, Robin said, to Emma's inheritance, using you and your custody as the vehicle. Dr. Mathis spoke up, his voice professional and damning. I've reviewed Emma's medical records, conducted current examinations, and analyzed her blood work from 10 days ago. This young lady was being systematically over-medicated with powerful psychiatric drugs she had no medical need for. The doses were high enough to keep her in a constant state of cognitive impairment. The prescribing physician, Dr. Eugene Ruiz, has a history of fraudulent prescriptions. This is medical abuse, plain and simple. No, Danielle said, but she was looking at Gregorio with horror. No, you said she needed treatment. You said Dr. Ruiz was reputable. He said what you wanted to hear. Diane cut in, her voice sharp. Because you chose to believe this man over your own daughter's well-being. How could you, Danielle? How could you do this to Emma? I didn't. I believed. Danielle was crying now, mascara running. Gregorio, tell them this was legitimate treatment. But Gregorio had gone very still, his face calculating. I'm not saying anything without a lawyer. Smart man, Alan said, because I've already turned this evidence over to the district attorney. They're reviewing it for criminal charges, medical abuse of a minor, financial exploitation, obtaining prescriptions under false pretenses, child endangerment. Both of you are looking at serious prison time. Both of us. Danielle, turn on Gregorio. This was your idea. You were the one who said Emma needed medications. You were the one who handled everything. Don't say another word. Gregorio snapped at her. They're trying to turn us against each other. Turn you against each other? Alan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You did that yourselves. Let me show you something else. He pulled out bank statements. These are Danielle's accounts. Regular cash withdrawals for Emma's fake prescriptions. But look at these charges. Luxury hotels in Vegas, expensive restaurants, designer clothes. All on Danielle's cards, all signed by Gregorio. You've been bleeding her dry while planning to steal Emma's trust fund. Gregorio's confident facade cracked. He looked at Danielle, clearly calculating whether to continue denying or to start protecting himself. Alan pulled out another document. And Danielle, you should know, Gregorio has been talking to a lawyer. Not about defending you both. About how to pin all of this on you if it ever came out. How to claim he was just following your instructions as Emma's mother. How to walk away clean while you take the fall. That's a lot, Gregorio shouted. Is it? Alan pushed the document across the table. Email correspondence between Gregorio and a criminal defense attorney discussing exactly that scenario. I have friends in interesting places, Gregorio. You should have been more careful about your digital footprint. Danielle stared at the emails, then at Gregorio, her face transforming from shock to fury. You son of a bitch. You were going to let me go to prison? For your scheme. It wasn't my scheme. You knew about the medications. You approved everything. Because you told me she needed them. You said Dr. Ruiz was legitimate. You handled everything. Stop. Randall's voice cut through the shouting. Both of you are incriminating yourselves. I strongly suggest you both retain counsel immediately. This mediation is over. But Mr. Hayes, I believe you have a custody petition pending. I do, Alan said calmly. Based on what I've witnessed here today, I'll be providing a recommendation to the court that full custody be granted to you immediately, with supervised visitation only for Ms. Moody pending criminal proceedings. Additionally, I'll be filing a mandatory report of child abuse with Child Protective Services. Danielle let out a sound like a wounded animal. Emma, sitting beside her grandmother, showed no emotion at all. "You're enjoying this," Gregorio said to Alan, venom in his voice. "Destroying us." "No," Alan said quietly. "I'm protecting my daughter. You destroyed yourselves the moment you decided she was worth less than money." Security, Coy Little, and a colleague appeared at the door. "We're here to ensure everyone leaves safely," Coy said, his presence making it clear that safely was not optional. As Danielle and Gregorio were escorted out, separately, still arguing, Diane put her arm around Emma. "Is it over?" Emma asked. "Almost," Alan said, "but not quite. They're going to try to fight this. Hire lawyers, make accusations. We need to be ready for one more round." But as he watched Danielle and Gregorio leave the building, still shouting at each other, blaming each other, Alan knew the hardest part was done. He'd broken their partnership, and divided they would fall. Chapter 7. Fractures. The week following the mediation, Alan's prediction proved correct. Danielle and Gregorio each hired lawyers, different lawyers, and began the desperate dance of self-preservation. Alan tracked every move through his network. Coy's contacts in the legal community reported that Gregorio's attorney was building a defense centered on Danielle as the primary villain. She had custody, she made medical decisions. Gregorio was merely her supportive partner following her instructions. Danielle's lawyer, meanwhile, was preparing to paint Gregorio as a manipulative con artist who'd taken advantage of a stressed single mother, convincing her that Emma needed treatment while he secretly planned to steal the trust fund. Both versions had elements of truth, which made both versions vulnerable. Alan sat in his home office Wednesday evening, building the final pieces of his case like engineering a complex structure. Every document categorized, every timeline verified, every witness statement cross-referenced. Robin brought him coffee and looked over his shoulder at the organized chaos. "You're like a man possessed." "I need this airtight," Alan said. "No gaps they can exploit, no witnesses they can discredit. Emma's future depends on it." Emma herself was thriving. Each day brought more clarity, more of her original personality back. She'd started drawing again, something she'd abandoned during the medicated years, and her sketches showed real talent. She and Robin had bonded over late-night baking sessions, and her relationship with Diane had rekindled warmly. But the healing wasn't complete. Emma had nightmares about being drugged, about waking up and not knowing where she was. She had rage at 3 stolen years, and she had questions Alan couldn't answer about why her mother had chosen money over her. Thursday morning brought the first crack in Danielle and Gregorio's defenses. Dr. Eugene Ruiz, facing his own medical board investigation, made a deal. He'd testify about Gregorio approaching him with cash to write prescriptions for Emma without proper examinations. He'd admit that Gregorio had specified the medications and doses, claiming they were for behavioral management rather than medical treatment. Ruiz is small fish trying to avoid becoming bait, Coy reported. But his testimony destroys Gregorio's claim that he was just following Danielle's medical decisions. Friday brought the second crack. Danielle's financial advisor came forward, not voluntarily, but under subpoena, with records showing Gregorio had been pressuring Danielle to take larger cash advances against her credit, claiming they needed liquidity for Emma's trust fund management when Emma turned 16. The advisor had flagged it as suspicious, but Danielle had overridden his concerns. "Shows premeditation," Alan noted. Gregorio was already setting up mechanisms to access the money 2 years before Emma would legally have access. But the biggest crack came Saturday, and it came from an unexpected source. Gregorio, feeling the walls closing in, made a catastrophic mistake. He contacted Emma directly. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Emma, it's Gregorio. I need you to know none of this was meant to hurt you. Your mother and I only wanted what was best. If you tell the lawyers that you remember feeling anxious after the divorce, that you asked for help, this can all go away. I'll make sure you get your trust fund without any problems. Just tell them you wanted the medication." Emma showed the text to Alan immediately. "He's trying to tamper with a witness," Robin said, reading over Alan's shoulder. "A minor witness. In a child abuse case." Alan smiled. Not a pleasant smile. "He just handed us everything we need." He forwarded the message to the district attorney, to Emma's guardian ad litem, appointed by the court, and to Danielle's attorney. The response was swift and brutal. Gregorio's lawyer withdrew from the case Sunday morning. By Monday, the DA had added witness tampering to the list of charges against Gregorio. His bail was revoked, and he was arrested pending trial. Danielle, seeing her former partner's complete collapse, made her choice. Her attorney reached out to Alan's lawyer Tuesday morning with a proposal. Danielle would provide full testimony against Gregorio, admit her role in negligently allowing the medication abuse, and surrender all custody rights to Alan permanently. In exchange, she would plead to lesser charges with probation instead of prison time. "She's trying to save herself," Alan told Emma when they got the news. "What do you think?" Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Will I have to see her? If she doesn't go to prison?" "Not if you don't want to. The custody surrender would be complete. She'd have no rights, no visitation unless you specifically requested it when you're older." "Then okay," Emma said softly. "I don't want her in prison. Despite everything, she's still my mom. But I don't want her in my life right now." Alan relayed the acceptance through his attorney, with one addition. Danielle had to provide every piece of evidence against Gregorio, testify fully and truthfully, and publicly acknowledge the harm done to Emma. Danielle agreed. Wednesday brought the custody hearing. It was anticlimactic, almost boring in its efficiency. Danielle's attorney presented the negotiated surrender. Alan's attorney presented the evidence, now overwhelming with Danielle's cooperation. The judge reviewed, asked Emma privately if she wanted to live with her father. She did, and signed the order. Full custody to Alan Hayes. No visitation rights for Danielle Moody. Permanent restraining order against Gregorio Blair. As they left the courthouse, Emma turned to Alan. "Is it really over?" "The legal part is," Alan said. "But there's still Gregorio's criminal trial. That's where the real justice happens." Emma smiled, a sharp, fierce smile that reminded Alan of himself. "Good. I want to testify." "Are you sure?" "It won't be easy. I'm sure. He needs to face what he did. And I need to tell the truth in public where everyone can hear it." Alan hugged his daughter. "You're the bravest person I know. I learned from you, Dad." Chapter 8, The Reckoning. Gregorio Blair's trial began 6 weeks later, in late January. The prosecution had built a fortress of evidence. Medical records, pharmaceutical records, financial documents, recordings, testimony from Dr. Ruiz, testimony from Danielle, and testimony from Emma herself. Alan sat in the courtroom gallery every day, watching as the man who'd stolen 3 years of his daughter's life tried desperately to escape justice. Gregorio's new lawyer, his third after the first 2 quit, tried various defenses. Gregorio was just trying to help. Danielle had exaggerated Emma's symptoms. Dr. Ruiz had acted independently. The medications were appropriate. Emma was misremembering due to teenage drama. Each defense crumbled under the weight of evidence. Dr. Marcus Mathis testified about the medical abuse, explaining in detail how the medications had affected Emma's development, her memory, her personality. This child was systematically sedated for years. The damage could have been permanent. She's extraordinarily lucky. Dr. Ruiz testified about Gregorio's cash payments, about how Gregorio had specified exact medications and doses without Emma ever being properly examined. He knew what he wanted. He had medical knowledge from his pharmaceutical background. This wasn't a concerned guardian seeking help. This was calculated drugging. Financial experts testified about Gregorio's deteriorating finances, his dependence on Danielle's income, his clear motive to access Emma's trust fund. Then came Danielle. She looked smaller on the witness stand, diminished. Her expensive clothes couldn't hide the weight she'd lost, the sleepless nights evident in her face. "I trusted him," she said, her voice barely audible. "Gregorio was charming, supportive when Alan and I divorced. He said he'd worked in pharmaceuticals, that he understood medical issues. When Emma seemed quiet after the divorce, which was normal, she was processing, he suggested maybe she needed some support. Just some light medication to help with anxiety. Did you question the medications? The prosecutor asked. At first, yes. But Gregorio said Dr. Ruiz was a specialist. He handled all the appointments, all the prescriptions. He said it was better if I didn't overwhelm Emma by hovering. She broke down. I believed him because it was easier than admitting I'd brought a monster into my daughter's life. Did you know about the trust fund plan? No, not until Alan showed me those recordings. I thought Gregorio loved Emma like his own daughter. I thought he was helping. I was so wrong. Danielle looked at Emma in the gallery. Baby, I'm so sorry. I failed you. I chose to believe lies because the truth was too ugly. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I see now what I did, and I'm sorry. Emma's face remained impassive. Finally, it was Emma's turn to testify. The judge had cleared most of the gallery for her testimony, leaving only necessary parties. But Emma had requested that her father be allowed to stay. She walked to the witness stand with her head high, wearing a simple blue dress Robin had helped her pick out. She looked older than 14, or perhaps she'd been forced to grow up too fast. The prosecutor handled her gently. Emma, can you describe your daily routine when you lived with your mother and Mr. Blair? Emma's voice was clear and steady. Every morning, Gregorio would give me pills. He called them vitamins, but they were prescription medications. Within an hour, I'd feel foggy. Everything would seem far away. I'd go to school, but I couldn't concentrate. I'd come home, and Gregorio would give me more pills. Then I'd do homework, or try to, but mostly I'd just sit there confused. Then more pills before bed. That was every day for almost 3 years. Did you ever question this routine? Sometimes I'd think something was wrong. I'd have these moments where I'd remember being different, being happier. But then Gregorio would tell me I was sick, that the medication was helping me, that without it I'd be much worse. And I believed him because I was too drugged to think clearly. Did Mr. Blair ever discuss your trust fund with you? All the time. When I was really foggy, he'd ask me questions about it, about whether I'd need help managing it, whether I trusted him and my mom to make decisions. He recorded these conversations on his phone. I'd answer whatever he wanted because I couldn't think straight. Do you believe Mr. Blair cared about your well-being? Emma looked directly at Gregorio for the first time. No, he cared about money. I was just a bank account he needed to keep quiet and compliant until he could access it. I wasn't a person to him. I was a resource. Gregorio's lawyer tried to shake her on cross-examination, suggesting she was confused, that her memories might be influenced by her father's campaign against Gregorio. My father didn't need a campaign, Emma said firmly. The truth is the campaign. You drugged me. You stole 3 years of my life. You were going to steal my inheritance. And you would have destroyed me completely if my dad hadn't figured it out. The lawyer tried another angle. Isn't it true you were rebellious after the divorce? That you were acting out? I was 11 years old dealing with my parents splitting up, Emma said. I was sad sometimes. I miss my dad. That's not a mental illness. That's being a normal kid. But you and my mother turned it into a reason to drug me into a zombie. After Emma's testimony, the trial's outcome was never in doubt. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Medical abuse of a minor, financial exploitation, obtaining prescriptions under false pretenses, child endangerment, witness tampering. At sentencing 2 weeks later, the judge was unsparing. Mr. Blair, you systematically abused a child for financial gain. You used your pharmaceutical knowledge not to help, but to harm. You stole 3 years of this young woman's childhood and nearly destroyed her future. This court finds your actions reprehensible and deserving of the maximum sentence allowed by law. 15 years in prison. No possibility of parole for 8 years. Lifetime restraining order from Emma. Complete financial restitution, though Gregorio had no assets left to seize. As bailiffs led Gregorio away, he looked back at Alan one final time. No words exchanged, but Alan saw the defeat in the man's eyes. The con artist who'd thought he could drug a child and steal her future, now facing his own future in a cell. Justice, Alan thought, wasn't always swift, but when it came, it was thorough. Chapter 9. Thanksgiving again. 11 months later, November arrived with crisp Arizona air and the promise of a very different Thanksgiving. Alan stood in his kitchen. Their kitchen now, his and Robin's and Emma's, watching his daughter help Robin prep the turkey. Emma was 15 now, about to turn 16 in 2 months. The trust fund would become accessible then, but they'd already decided. It would stay invested, managed professionally, accessible but not tempting. Emma had more important things to focus on. "Dad, you're hovering," Emma said, not looking up from the potatoes she was mashing. "I'm supervising," Alan corrected. "You're being sappy." Emma grinned at him, a real grin, full of life and mischief. The doorbell rang. Diane Carpenter arrived with her arms full of dishes, followed by Coy Little and his wife, then Dr. Mathis and his partner, then Randall McCoy with his husband. Alan had invited everyone who'd helped save Emma. His family had expanded beyond blood, and he was grateful for each person who'd stood with them. During dinner, surrounded by people who genuinely cared, Alan watched Emma laugh at one of Coy's terrible jokes. She'd fully recovered, physically, mentally, emotionally. She was in therapy, processing the trauma, but she was healing. She'd rejoined the art club at school and had even won a regional competition for her architectural drawings. "She gets that from you," Robin had said when they'd hung Emma's award in the living room. Maybe she did, but Emma had something Alan had to learn: resilience. She'd been through hell and emerged stronger, not broken. She'd faced her abusers in court. She'd reclaimed her life. After dinner, while others chatted over pie, Emma pulled Alan aside. "I heard from Mom," she said quietly. Alan tensed. Danielle had served 9 months in county jail, followed by probation. She'd been released 2 months ago. The restraining order prevented direct contact, but Emma could initiate it if she chose. "What did she say?" "She wrote me a letter. Apologized again. Said she's in therapy, working on herself. Asked if maybe someday, years from now, we could talk. No pressure, no expectations. Just possibility. How do you feel about that?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Part of me is still angry. Part of me misses the mom she was before Gregorio. Part of me thinks maybe someday I'll be ready to see if there's anything left to salvage there. But not now. Not for a long time." "That's fair," Alan said. "Take all the time you need. There's no timeline for healing." "Did you heal?" Emma asked. "From the divorce, from losing me for 3 years?" "I'm still healing," Alan admitted. "But having you back, seeing you happy and healthy, that's made everything worthwhile. You were worth fighting for, Emma. You're always worth fighting for." Emma hugged him. "I know, Dad. Thank you for not giving up on me." As they returned to the others, Alan felt something settle in his chest. Not quite peace, but close. Justice had been served. His daughter was safe. His family was whole. Robin caught his eye from across the room and smiled. She'd seen something wrong that night last year, and she'd spoken up. She'd saved Emma's life. Later, after everyone had left and Emma had gone to bed, Alan and Robin stood in their backyard, looking at the Arizona stars. "Gregorio's appeal was denied yesterday," Robin mentioned. "Coy told me. He'll serve the full 15 years. "Good," Alan said simply. There was no vindictiveness in his voice, just finality. "Are you happy with how everything turned out?" Alan considered the question. Happy isn't the right word. Emma lost 3 years she'll never get back. Danielle destroyed her own relationship with her daughter. A man is in prison. But justice was done, Emma is healing, and we're a family. So no, not happy. But satisfied. Complete. And if you could do it all over again, change anything, I'd have figured it out sooner, Alan said immediately. I'd have questioned why Emma stopped calling. I'd have pushed harder for visits. I'd have. Robin put a finger on his lips. You did what you could with what you knew. And when you had the chance, you protected her perfectly. You were strategic, thorough, and you made sure those people could never hurt her again. Emma has her father back. That's what matters. Alan pulled Robin close. We make a good team. We do, she agreed. Engineer and pharmacist. Building futures and healing wounds. Inside, Alan heard Emma laugh at something on her phone, probably texting her friends, making plans, living the normal teenage life that had been stolen from her. He'd been asked to engineer many things in his career. Bridges, buildings, structures meant to withstand earthquakes and time. But the most important thing he'd ever built was this: a safe space for his daughter to heal. A family that protected each other. A future not defined by trauma, but by recovery. Next week, Emma would start her architectural drafting class at school. She wanted to be an engineer like her dad, she'd said. Design buildings that would protect people. Alan smiled. His daughter had learned that protection wasn't just about strong structures. It was about recognizing danger, having the courage to face it, and the strength to fight back. She'd learned that from him. But she taught him something too. That love was worth fighting for, that family was worth protecting at any cost, and that justice, when properly engineered, was unshakable. As Alan and Robin headed inside to lock up for the night, Alan paused at Emma's door. She was already asleep, her sketchbook open on her nightstand showing designs for a home. Their home, with additions for a workshop where they could build things together. "Sweet dreams, Emma," he whispered. "You're safe now. Always." And for the first time in 4 years, Alan Hayes slept without worry, knowing his daughter was home where she belonged. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Frost. Snow fell silently over the Connecticut mansion as Victor Mercer watched his twin children build a snowman through the kitchen window. At 42, Victor had built his security empire from nothing, transforming his special forces training into a lucrative civilian career. Standing 6'3" with ice blue eyes that rarely softened, even for his 6-year-old twins Leo and Lily, Victor commanded respect in every room. "Daddy, come help us." Lily's high-pitched voice called through the partially open window. Victor gave a rare smile and nodded. "Mr. Mercer," his assistant Nora interrupted, "Governor Talon is on the line about the security contract." Victor's expression hardened. "Tell him I'll call back in an hour. My children are waiting." The family's 12-bedroom estate, nestled on 20 acres of woodland just outside Hartford, represented everything Victor had sacrificed for: security, legacy, prosperity. His wife Diana, a former model turned charity organizer, had been part of that perfect picture for 8 years. Later that evening, as the household staff prepared for the annual Mercer Christmas Gala, Victor walked into Diana's studio, where she was supposedly working on her charity foundation's financials. "The Andersons and Wellmans confirmed for tomorrow," Victor said, leaning against the doorframe. "Governor Talon is bringing his new wife." Diana minimized something on her laptop screen too quickly. "That's lovely. I've seated them at table 3. Victor noticed the flush on her cheeks, the slightly disheveled hair. "Everything all right? You seem distracted lately. Just busy with the foundation. The children's hospital wing needs another $2 million by January." Diana turned away, tucking her auburn hair behind her ear, a tell Victor had noted since their first date. "Of course," Victor said, his mind cataloging another suspicious behavior. "The security team will be here at 6 tomorrow to prepare for the gala. I've doubled them since the threats against the governor." As he left the room, Victor pressed a small button on his watch, activating the surveillance system he'd installed throughout the house 3 months ago when Diana's behavior first changed. Most men would confront their wives with suspicions. Victor wasn't most men. In his private office, Victor unlocked a hidden panel revealing multiple screens displaying every room in the house. Diana was now on her phone, speaking urgently in hushed tones. Victor turned up the volume. "He knows something?" "No, I didn't tell him anything." "Yes, I'm sure." "No, not Christmas Eve, it's too risky." "Russell, please." Victor's face remained impassive as he recorded the conversation. He'd survived 3 tours in Afghanistan and built a security empire by controlling his emotions. This betrayal would be handled with the same calculated precision as everything else in his life. The name Russell triggered a memory. Russell Holt, a charismatic venture capitalist who had appeared at their charity gala last summer. The man who had donated $500,000 to Diana's foundation. The man who had been in their home multiple times for foundation meetings. Victor opened a secure laptop and accessed a database few civilians knew existed. His military contacts still proved useful. Russell Holt wasn't just a wealthy businessman. He had connections to offshore banking operations suspected of laundering money for various criminal enterprises. Nothing had ever stuck, but Victor now had leverage should he need it. Victor closed the panel as his twins burst into the office. "Daddy, Ms. Winnie made hot chocolate," Leo announced, his face alight with excitement. Victor lifted both children onto his lap. "Did she put extra marshmallows like you like?" As the children nodded enthusiastically, Victor felt a cold determination settle in his chest. No one would take this away from him, especially not his unfaithful wife and her lover. Chapter 2. Fracture. The Mercer Christmas Gala transformed their estate into a winter wonderland of crystal, silver, and white roses. 200 of Connecticut's elite mingled under chandeliers, the air thick with expensive perfume and political ambition. Victor moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his custom tuxedo immaculate, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Spectacular as always, Victor," Governor Tallon said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Your security team is so discreet, I hardly noticed them." "That's the point," Victor replied. "The best security is invisible until needed." His eyes tracked Diana across the room, watching as she charmed donors in her crimson gown. The diamonds at her throat, his gift for their anniversary, caught the light with every laugh. She was performing flawlessly, except for the 6 times she checked her phone when she thought no one was looking. Victor's security director, Floyd Brenner, approached with 2 champagne flutes. A former Marine who'd served with Victor, Floyd was the only person Victor truly trusted. "Perimeter secure," Floyd muttered, handing Victor a drink. "Though your wife's had 3 text conversations in the last hour." Victor nodded imperceptibly. "And our other matter?" "Confirmed. Russell Holt has a room at the Waldorf in Hartford. Checked in yesterday." Floyd's expression darkened. "There's more. He's on a watch list. Treasury Department suspects him of funding arms deals in Eastern Europe. Nothing solid enough for charges yet." "Interesting choice of lover," Victor said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Have Jensen follow her if she leaves tonight." As midnight approached, Diana made her excuses to Victor, claiming a migraine. He played the concerned husband, suggested she take something and rest, aware of the overnight bag already hidden in her car. In their bedroom, Diana changed into casual clothes, applied fresh makeup, and crept down the service stairs. Victor watched on the security feed as she slipped into her Mercedes and drove away. "She's heading east on Route 7, Floyd confirmed through Victor's earpiece. "Jensen's following at a distance." Victor finished his conversation with the investment banker, excused himself, and returned to his office. On his screens, Diana's car pulled into the Waldorf's underground parking. Hotel security cameras, accessible thanks to a substantial maintenance contract Victor had arranged months earlier, showed Diana entering a suite on the 12th floor. "Russell Holt's room," Floyd confirmed, entering the office. "Wanting to send someone in?" "Not yet," Victor said. "I need more than just an affair to work with." Victor accessed the hotel room's audio surveillance, installed by his team, disguised as maintenance workers. Diana's voice came through clearly. "I'm scared, Russell." Victor's not stupid. He notices everything. "You worry too much," Russell replied, his voice smooth with confidence. "The transfer is almost complete. 2 more weeks, and we'll have everything moved. He'll never trace it. And then what? I just leave with the twins on a normal Tuesday. We've been over this. You file for divorce, claiming emotional neglect. With your documented charity work and his absences for business, custody won't be an issue. Then we disappear to the house in Geneva. The accounts are untraceable." Victor's expression didn't change as he realized the full scope of the betrayal. Not just an affair, they planned to take his children and a significant portion of his assets. "The Christmas Eve plan is still best," Russell continued. While everyone's distracted with holiday festivities, we finalize the transfers. You give him the divorce papers the day after Christmas. By New Year's, it's done. As Diana agreed, Victor closed the feed and turned to Floyd. I want everything on Russell Holt. Every account, property, contact, and crime, suspected or confirmed. And I want our lawyers to review Diana's access to all accounts immediately. Floyd nodded. And the children? Move additional security to their wing. No one takes them anywhere without my explicit approval. Victor's voice was ice. Also, prepare the cabin in Vermont. We may need it. After Floyd left, Victor opened his safe and removed his satellite phone that couldn't be traced. He dialed a number few people possessed. It's Mercer, he said when a gruff voice answered. I'm calling in Blackwood Protocol. Authorization code Delta 7 Echo 09. The voice on the other end paused. Confirmed. Timeline, Christmas Eve, Victor replied. I'll send details in the usual way. 3 days before Christmas, Victor took the twins ice skating, buying Diana time to meet Russell again. He smiled and took photos as Leo and Lily wobbled across the ice, all while his team monitored Diana's meeting at an upscale restaurant in New Haven. That night, after tucking the twins into bed, Victor modified his security protocols. Any genuine love he'd felt for Diana had crystallized into something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. His enemies in business called him the Iceman for good reason. Victor didn't get angry. He got even, with a calculated precision that left nothing to chance. Christmas was coming, and with it, a reckoning no one but Victor would see coming. Chapter 3. Shatter. Christmas Eve arrived with picture-perfect snowfall that transformed the Mercer estate into something from a holiday card. Inside, the house buzzed with activity as staff prepared an intimate family dinner. Victor had arranged everything carefully. The twins' favorite foods, Diana's preferred wine, and a string quartet playing in the drawing room. The musicians seem excessive for a family dinner, Diana commented, arranging poinsettias on the dining table. The children love live music, Victor replied. And it's Christmas Eve. Nothing is excessive. What he didn't mention was that the musicians were actually part of his security team, their instrument cases containing more than violins and cellos. As afternoon faded to evening, Victor played the role of doting father and husband perfectly. He helped the twins place cookies for Santa, read the night before Christmas, and even laughed at Diana's stories during dinner. Anyone watching would have seen a perfect family celebrating the holiday. After dinner, Victor poured Diana another glass of wine as the twins vibrated with excitement in their matching red pajamas. Can we open just one present, please? Lily begged, bouncing on her toes. One small one, Victor agreed, selecting 2 identical boxes from under the enormous tree. These are from Daddy. The twins tore into the packages, revealing custom snow globes with miniature replicas of their family inside the glass domes. Look, it's us, Leo exclaimed, shaking the globe to send snow swirling around the tiny figures. So we're always together, even when we're apart, Victor explained, his eyes meeting Diana's. Her smile faltered slightly. At 9 o'clock, Victor announced it was bedtime for the twins. Diana followed them upstairs to tuck them in, while Victor remained in the living room, checking his watch. When Diana returned, she was already on her phone, texting rapidly. Victor, I need to run to my studio for the children's final gifts, she said without looking up. I forgot to wrap them. Of course, Victor replied. I'll wait up. Diana hesitated. Don't. I'll be a while. These gifts are complicated. Victor nodded agreeably. Then I'll head to bed. In their bedroom, Diana gathered overnight toiletries while Victor pretended to read financial reports. He watched as she changed into more comfortable clothes and applied fresh lipstick. Not the actions of someone planning to wrap presents. You've been distant lately, Diana said suddenly, her eyes meeting his in a mirror. Always working, always on your phone. Victor recognized the strategy, projecting her own behaviors onto him, manufacturing an argument as cover for her exit. Have I? He replied mildly. I thought I was just giving you space for your foundation work. Diana's eyes narrowed slightly. Well, I need some space tonight. I'm stressed about tomorrow and the children's expectations. Understand, Victor said. Take all the space you need. With a final glance, Diana left the bedroom. Victor waited until he heard her car start before accessing his security system. Diana didn't head to her studio but drove directly toward the main gate. Victor changed into black tactical clothing and activated his earpiece. She's on the move, Floyd's voice confirmed. Heading toward Hartford. Everyone in position? Victor asked. Affirmative. SWAT team on standby. Hotel security has provided access to the service corridors. Victor checked the specialized equipment in his closet safe, then moved silently to the twins' room. Both children were sound asleep, unaware that their world was about to change forever. He adjusted their blankets and activated the security sensors around their beds that would alert him to any movement. At 11:30 p.m., Victor received confirmation that Diana had entered Russell's hotel suite. The audio surveillance activated automatically. Everything's set, Diana was saying. He doesn't suspect anything. The transfers are complete. All done, Russell replied. By the time he discovers anything, we'll be in Geneva with the children. The jet is fueled and waiting. Did you get their passports made? Of course. Everything's prepared. We leave tomorrow night during the Christmas celebration. Your sister will help with the twins. Victor's expression didn't change as he heard his sister-in-law Valerie was involved. He simply added another name to his mental list. Victor walked to his office and pressed a button beneath his desk. Immediately, all electronic locks in the house engaged. He sent a prearranged text to Floyd, then changed into pajamas and settled onto the living room couch, positioning himself perfectly for what would come next. At 12:45 a.m., Diana's car returned. Victor heard her enter through the kitchen, then the sound of her heels on the marble floor as she approached the living room. She paused upon seeing him on the couch. I thought you'd be in bed, she said, clearly unsettled. Found the bedroom door locked, Victor replied evenly. There was a text from you. Something about losers sleep on the couch. Diana's face paled slightly. I was upset earlier. You know how stressed I get at Christmas. Of course, Victor said, his tone conversational. Stress makes people do strange things. Take overnight trips to see their lovers, for instance. Diana froze. What are you talking about? Russell Holt. The Waldorf. Suite 1242. Victor maintained eye contact. The planning to take my children to Geneva with falsified passports. That kind of stress. You're paranoid, Diana whispered, but her hand trembled as she set down her purse. You've always been controlling, always. Spare me. Victor cut her off. I have recordings of everything. Every meeting, plan, transfer from my accounts to the ones in Zurich. Diana's composure cracked. It's not what you think. Russell and I. Save it for the authorities, Victor interrupted, checking his watch. It's nearly time. Time for what? Diana's voice shook. Victor didn't answer, simply stretched out on the couch as if preparing to sleep. Diana stood uncertainly for a moment before heading upstairs. Her footsteps hurried. Victor counted down silently, knowing Diana would contact Russell immediately. The bedroom surveillance confirmed his prediction as she frantically whispered into her phone. He knows. I don't know how much, but he knows. No, I don't think he has proof. Yes, we should accelerate. Tomorrow morning. I'll drug his coffee. Victor closed his eyes, not sleeping but waiting. At dawn, precise footsteps padded down the stairs. The twins, eager for Christmas morning. Victor feigned sleep until they approached the couch. Daddy, Leo whispered, poking his arm. Why are you sleeping here? Victor opened his eyes slowly. Mommy needed space last night. Daddy, Lily whispered, her eyes wide with confusion. There's a strange man in Mommy's room. Victor sat up, his expression carefully concerned. Are you sure, sweetheart? We heard noises and peeked in, Leo confirmed. He's in bed with Mommy. Victor nodded, placing a gentle hand on each child's shoulder. I need you both to be very brave. Go to the kitchen and tell Ms. Winnie to give you breakfast in the safe room, just like we practiced in our safety drills. Can you do that? The twins nodded solemnly and headed toward the kitchen. Victor waited until they were out of sight, then pulled out his phone and dialed. They're ready, he said simply. Within 30 seconds, the pre-dawn quiet shattered as SWAT teams crashed through windows simultaneously throughout the house. Shouts of police, "Don't move!" echoed through the halls as armed officers stormed up the stairs. Victor remained seated calmly on the couch as Diana's terrified screams mixed with a man's surprised shouts. Heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs as officers dragged a handcuffed Russell Holt into the living room, wearing only boxer shorts. "Russell Holt," announced the SWAT commander, "you're under arrest for money laundering, arms trafficking, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping." Diana appeared at the top of the stairs in her nightgown, flanked by 2 female officers. "Victor, what is happening?" "Tell them this is a mistake." Victor stood slowly, straightening his pajamas. "No mistake, Diana. Russell here is wanted in 3 countries. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate the man sleeping with my wife and planning to kidnap my children?" Diana's face contorted with rage and fear. "You bastard! You set this up." "Actually, you did," Victor replied calmly. "I just made sure the authorities knew where to find Mr. Holt. The money transfers you orchestrated were all tracked and documented. The falsified passports for my children were particularly interesting to Homeland Security." As Diana was handcuffed and read her rights, her eyes locked with Victor's. "This isn't over," she hissed. "For you, it is," Victor replied, his voice devoid of emotion. "But you're right about one thing." He stepped closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "This is just the beginning." Chapter 4. Foundation. 24 hours after the Christmas Eve raid, Victor sat in his attorney's office, reviewing documents while snow fell outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Hartford's tallest skyscraper. Bernard Wyatt, Victor's personal attorney for 15 years, spread files across the mahogany conference table. "Diana's being held without bail," Bernard reported. "The evidence of conspiracy to kidnap the twins is substantial. Russell Holt's situation is worse. Treasury Department has connected him to arms deals in Ukraine, plus the money laundering charges." Victor nodded, scanning the documents. "And custody of the children?" "Temporary full custody granted to you this morning," Bernard confirmed. "Given the circumstances, permanent sole custody shouldn't be difficult to secure." Bernard hesitated before continuing. "Victor, Diana's family is making noise. Her father called me threatening lawsuits for defamation. Senator Brighton can threaten all he wants," Victor replied, his tone dismissive. "His political career won't survive his daughter's association with an arms dealer. He'll back off once he realizes that." "And your sister-in-law, Valerie?" "Currently being questioned about her role in the planned kidnapping," Victor said, checking his watch. "The twins are staying with my mother until things settle." Bernard leaned forward. "Victor, I've known you a long time. This seems unusually well-prepared, even for you." Victor's eyes met his lawyer's. "When someone plans to steal your children and your money, Bernard, preparation is essential." After the meeting, Victor drove to a nondescript warehouse in an industrial area outside Hartford. Inside, Floyd had established a secure operations center with multiple workstations and screens displaying surveillance footage. "Senator Brighton visited Diana at the detention center an hour ago," Floyd reported. "Their conversation was recorded as per your arrangement with the district attorney." Victor watched the footage of Diana's tearful pleas to her father. The senator looked ashen, his usual confidence shattered as Diana explained her situation. "I need you to dig deeper into Brighton's connection to Holt," Victor instructed. "Diana didn't choose Russell randomly. There's a pattern I'm not seeing yet." Floyd nodded. "Already on it. Something else you should know. The twins' nanny, Winnie, has been accepting payments from Diana's personal account. $50,000 over the past 3 months. Victor's expression hardened. "Bring her in." An hour later, Winnie Parker sat nervously across from Victor in a sterile interrogation room within the warehouse. At 58, she'd been with the family since the twins were born. "Mr. Mercer, I can explain," she began, her hands trembling. "Please do," Victor replied, his voice dangerously soft. "Explain why the woman I trusted with my children was accepting bribes from my wife." Mrs. Mercer said it was for a surprise trip for the children. Winnie stammered. She asked me to gather information about their schedules, their medications, their favorite toys and clothes, things to pack for a vacation. And you didn't find that suspicious? The secret of payments? The detailed information about my children's routines. Tears welled in Winnie's eyes. I thought it was a surprise for you too. A family trip. Victor studied her for a long moment. Were you aware the children were to be taken out of the country without my knowledge or consent? No, I swear. Winnie's voice cracked. I would never help someone take those children away from you. I've seen how much you love them, even if you don't always show it like others might. Victor made a decision. You'll provide a complete statement to my security team. Everything Diana asked, every detail you provided. If your information proves useful and your ignorance genuine, you may avoid criminal charges. After Winnie was led away, Floyd approached with a tablet. You believe her? Not entirely, Victor replied. Keep her under surveillance and replace her immediately. I want someone we can trust absolutely with the twins. Already vetted 3 candidates, Floyd confirmed. Former Secret Service, specialized in child protection. Victor nodded his approval. What about Diana's sister? Valerie was released 2 hours ago. She's claiming she knew nothing about kidnapping plans. Thought Diana was just leaving you. She's lying, Victor stated flatly. The surveillance at her apartment picked up multiple conversations about the Swiss arrangements. Keep her under watch, but don't interfere yet. She'll lead us to others involved. Later that night, Victor visited his mother's lakeside home where the twins were staying. At 70, Margaret Mercer maintained the sharp intellect and direct manner that had helped her raise Victor alone after his father's death in military service. They're asleep, Margaret informed him as he entered. They've been asking questions I can't answer. Victor removed his coat. What did you tell them? That their mother had to go away for a while, and that you're doing everything to keep them safe. Margaret's steely gaze fixed on her son. Now tell me what's really happening. Your calls have been cryptic at best. Victor explained the situation concisely, leaving out only the most disturbing details. Margaret listened without interruption, her expression growing grimmer with each revelation. I always thought Diana was playing a role, she finally said. Too perfect, too practiced. She paused. Were you planning, Victor? I know that look. Justice, Victor replied simply. Margaret shook her head. No, that's your public face. I'm asking what you're really planning. Victor met his mother's gaze unflinchingly. Diana and her associates didn't just betray me. They plan to take my children, your grandchildren, forever. They will face consequences beyond what the legal system provides. Be careful, Margaret warned. The twins still love their mother, despite everything. Whatever you do will affect them too. I'm always careful, Victor assured her. And the twins will understand eventually that everything I do is to protect them. As Victor left his mother's house, his phone buzzed with a message from Floyd. Connection confirmed between Senator Brighton and Russell Holt. Offshore accounts linked to defense contracts. Files available on secure server. Victor smiled coldly as he started his car. The web was expanding exactly as he'd anticipated, revealing connections and conspiracies that would prove useful. Diana, Russell, Senator Brighton, Valerie, all of them would soon discover the high price of crossing Victor Mercer. His plan wasn't just about punishment. It was about dismantling their entire world, piece by methodical piece, until nothing remained but the ruins of their own making. Chapter 5. Structure. 3 weeks after the arrests, Victor stood in his home office, reviewing the evidence boards that now covered an entire wall. Photos, documents, bank statements, and transcripts were connected by color-coded strings, creating a visual map of the conspiracy against him. Senator Brighton's face featured prominently, connected to Russell Holt through defense contracts and offshore accounts. Diana's sister Valerie was linked to both through numerous phone calls and meetings. Additional photos showed associates of Holt, lawyers, bankers, and several political figures, including Governor Talon. Floyd entered with fresh coffee. Forensic accountants finished their analysis. The money trail goes back 18 months, long before Diana met Holt at your charity gala. Victor's eyes narrowed. She was looking for someone like him all along. Appears so. Brighton introduced them, supposedly for charitable donations to Diana's foundation. But the foundation was transferring funds to shell companies owned by Holt almost immediately afterward. So Diana's foundation was a money laundering operation, Victor concluded, with her father's knowledge and assistance. Floyd nodded. Brighton's been feeding classified defense information to Holt for years. Diana was their conduit, using her position as your wife to access certain circles without suspicion. Victor absorbed this information, adding it to his mental calculation. What about Valerie, former intelligence analyst for the State Department, before she conveniently resigned to focus on family? She's been the operational planner, using her government contacts. The pieces were falling into place. Victor hadn't just been betrayed by his wife. He'd been targeted specifically because of his wealth, connections, and security expertise. Diana had never loved him. He'd been selected as part of a long-term operation. The twins, Victor said suddenly. When were they planning to take them? Floyd hesitated. Based on the timeline we've reconstructed, the plan was always Christmas night. Diana would drug your coffee during Christmas dinner. Then Valerie would arrive, claiming to take the twins shopping while you slept. They'd be on Holt's private jet to Geneva before you woke up. A cold fury settled in Victor's chest. And the evidence against me they manufactured? Substantial, Floyd admitted. Falsified financial records showing you embezzling from government contracts. Fabricated emails suggesting threats against Diana. Manipulated photos showing you with other women. They were building a case that you were abusive, unfaithful, and criminal. Victor's jaw tightened, all to ensure Diana got custody and access to my assets. They underestimated you, Floyd observed. They always do, Victor replied. That afternoon, Victor visited Diana at the Women's Detention Center. She sat across from him in a gray jumpsuit, her usually perfect appearance now haggard, dark circles under her eyes. Come to gloat, she asked bitterly. To understand, Victor countered. 18 months of planning. The foundation, the affair, the prepared evidence against me. What? Diana's laugh was hollow. You still don't get it, do you? You were never the target, Victor. Your contracts were. Your security systems protect half the government's classified operations. Russell needed access. So you married me, had my children, all for an intelligence operation? Victor kept his voice steady despite the rage building inside. The children weren't planned, Diana admitted, a flash of something like regret crossing her face. But they became useful. A man like you would never abandon his legacy. And now, Victor asked, what's your play now that you've failed? Diana leaned forward. My father is still a senator. Russell still has powerful friends. This isn't over, Victor. One way or another, I'll get out. And when I do, I'll take everything you love. Victor studied her, seeing for the first time the complete absence of the woman he thought he'd married. No, Diana, you won't. Because unlike you, I don't make threats. I make promises. As he stood to leave, Diana called after him. The twins ask about me. They must miss their mother. Victor turned back. They asked once. I told them the truth, that the person they thought was their mother never really existed. That night, Victor met with District Attorney Monica Vance in a private room at his club in Hartford. At 55, Vance had a reputation for ruthless prosecution and political ambition. The evidence against Senator Brighton is concerning, she said after reviewing Victor's files. But moving against a sitting senator requires ironclad proof and political support, both of which I've provided, Victor noted. The offshore accounts, the classified information leaks, the conspiracy to kidnap American citizens. It's all documented. Vance tapped the files. With your evidence and testimony, I can convene a grand jury. But Brighton will fight back hard. Let him, Victor replied. Everything I've given you is legally obtained and admissible. And there's more where that came from. What do you want from this, Victor? Vance asked directly. Revenge. Justice, Victor corrected. For my children who nearly became pawns in an international conspiracy. And for the government's secrets that were compromised. Vance nodded slowly. I'll move forward with this. But be prepared. Once I file these charges, Brighton and his allies will come at you with everything they have. I'm counting on it, Victor said with a cold smile. The following morning, as Victor reviewed security protocols with his team at the warehouse, Floyd received an urgent call. "We have a situation," he reported after hanging up. "Valerie just boarded a flight to Zurich despite being under court order not to leave the state. Let her go," Victor instructed. "She'll lead us to the rest of their network. Alert our Swiss contacts to maintain surveillance, but take no action." "There's more," Floyd continued. "Governor Talon has called an emergency press conference for noon today." Victor checked his watch. Right on schedule. They're mobilizing their political assets to try to get ahead of this. At noon, Victor watched from his office as Governor Talon stood before cameras, his expression grave. "It has come to my attention that Victor Mercer, a defense contractor with access to sensitive government information, has been using his position to fabricate evidence against respected public servants, including Senator Brighton. These baseless accusations appear to be retaliation for personal matters and have no place in our justice system." Victor smiled as the governor continued his prepared statement defending Brighton and questioning Victor's mental stability following his marital problems. "Predictable," he commented to Floyd. "They're trying to discredit me before the DEA files charges." "It could work," Floyd pointed out. "Talon has considerable influence with the media." "He does," Victor agreed. "But unlike Brighton, the governor has always been careless." He turned to his computer and sent a pre-prepared email to every major news outlet in the country. Within an hour, breaking news alerts interrupted regular programming as reporters revealed documents showing Governor Talon had received millions in kickbacks from defense contracts arranged by Russell Holt through Senator Brighton's office. The evidence, provided by an anonymous source, included bank transfers, recorded conversations, and photographs of meetings. As Talon's press conference imploded with reporters shouting questions about the new allegations, Victor received a call from DA Vance. "This wasn't our agreement," she said angrily. "I was supposed to handle the legal process, not be blindsided by media leaks." "The leaks didn't come from me," Victor replied calmly. "Though I'm not surprised someone else had similar evidence. Corruption this extensive leaves many trails. Brighton is screaming for your arrest, claiming harassment and defamation." "Let him scream," Victor said. "By this time tomorrow, he'll be too busy defending himself to worry about me." After hanging up, Victor turned to Floyd. "Phase 2 begins now. Contact our people in Zurich. It's time to follow the money all the way to the source." As news of the corruption scandal spread, Victor received a text from his mother. The twins saw the news about Diana. "They have questions I can't answer." Victor closed his eyes briefly. His children were the only vulnerability in his armor, the only consideration that might give him pause. But they were also his reason for pursuing this course so relentlessly. They deserved to know the truth, however painful. "I'm on my way," he texted back. When he arrived at his mother's house, Leo and Lily were sitting on the porch swing, unusually subdued. Victor sat between them, putting an arm around each child. "Ms. Winnie said Mommy did something bad," Lily said quietly. "That's why she's in jail." "Is Mommy a criminal?" Leo asked, his voice small. Victor chose his words carefully. "Your mother made some very bad choices. She worked with people who were doing wrong things. Did she stop loving us?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. Victor pulled her closer. "Sometimes adults get confused about what's important. They make mistakes that hurt people they should protect." "Will we ever see her again?" Leo asked. "I don't know," Victor answered honestly. "But I promise you both, I will always be here. I will always protect you. And nothing is more important to me than you." As the twins leaned against him, seeking comfort in his embrace, Victor's resolve hardened further. Diana, Brighton, Holt, and everyone else involved in the conspiracy would pay not just for betraying him, but for being willing to use Leo and Lily as pawns in their scheme. The plan was moving forward exactly as Victor had designed. The political dominoes were falling. The financial web was unraveling. And soon, the final phase would begin. Chapter 6, Blueprint. 1 month after the scandal broke, Victor sat in a secure conference room at the Justice Department in Washington, D.C. Across from him, 3 federal prosecutors and the director of the FBI reviewed the mountain of evidence he'd provided. "Mr. Mercer, I want to be clear," said Director Phillips. a career FBI man with a reputation for incorruptibility. The scope of this conspiracy extends beyond anything we initially suspected. Senator Brighton appears to have been selling military intelligence to foreign interests for nearly a decade. Victor nodded. That aligns with my findings. My wife's foundation was just one of many laundering operations they used. And you had no knowledge of these activities until recently? Asked the lead prosecutor, Eleanor Walsh. I had suspicions about my wife's fidelity, Victor replied carefully. The financial discrepancies in her foundation caught my attention during a routine audit. That led me to investigate further, which uncovered the broader conspiracy. Director Phillips leaned forward. You understand that your cooperation, while appreciated, doesn't guarantee immunity if we discover you had any involvement? I welcome the scrutiny, Victor said confidently. My security contracts with the government have been transparent and rigorously documented. I have nothing to hide. After the meeting, Victor was escorted out through a private exit to avoid the press that had been camped outside federal buildings since Senator Brighton's arrest 3 days earlier. The political earthquake had claimed 6 senators, 2 governors, and dozens of lower officials so far, with more revelations coming daily. In his car, Victor checked secure messages from Floyd. Swiss accounts emptied 48 hours before we gained access. Funds traced to Cayman Islands, then lost. Victor wasn't concerned. The money had always been a secondary objective, merely bait to lure bigger fish. The primary goal, dismantling the network that had infiltrated his life and threatened his children, was progressing perfectly. His next stop was the federal detention center where Russell Holt was being held without bail. Unlike Diana, who maintained her defiance, Holt had been cooperating with authorities, desperate to save himself. In the visitor's room, Holt looked diminished in his orange jumpsuit, his former confidence replaced by nervous energy. I wondered when you'd come, Holt said as Victor sat across from him. Come to see the man who almost took everything from you. Almost being the operative word, Victor replied calmly. I came to understand something. Why Diana specifically? They're easier targets for a man with your resources. Holt's laugh was bitter. You really have no idea who you are, do you, Mercer? Your background checks, your security protocols, they're legendary. Breaking through them gave us access to everything. So, I was the target all along, Victor concluded. Diana was just your way in. She volunteered, Holt said with a shrug. Brighton suggested using her to get to you, and she jumped at the chance. Said she'd always wanted to see how the other half lived. And the twins. Victor kept his voice steady. Holt had the decency to look uncomfortable. That was never part of the original plan. Diana wasn't supposed to get pregnant. When she did, Brighton saw an opportunity, a more permanent hold over you. Victor absorbed this information, fitting it into the puzzle he'd been assembling. You're cooperating with the feds. What are you giving them? Everything I know, Holt admitted. Names, accounts, operations. I'm looking at 20 years instead of life, if I'm lucky. And Diana? You're giving her up too. Holt's expression hardened. She threw me under the bus first chance she got. Claimed I manipulated her, that she feared for her life. Brighton's lawyers are already building a coercion defense for her. Victor stood to leave. Thank you for your honesty. It's been illuminating. Wait, Holt called after him. There's something you should know. Diana has contingencies you haven't found yet. She always does. Whatever you think you know, it's not everything. Victor paused. I'm counting on that, he said before walking away. Later that evening, Victor met Floyd at the Warehouse Operations Center. The wall of evidence had expanded, now incorporating federal intelligence and financial data obtained through official channels. Holt wasn't lying about Diana's defense strategy, Floyd reported. Her lawyers filed motions today claiming she acted under duress and fear for her life. They're painting her as another victim. Expected, Victor noted. Brighton's influence still carries weight, even from a cell. What about Valerie? Swiss authorities found her dead in her hotel room this morning. Apparent suicide, but the timing is suspicious. Victor studied the surveillance photos of Valerie's last known movements. She knew too much. Brighton's cleaning house. From prison. Floyd sounded skeptical. He has resources we haven't identified yet, Victor said. Valerie's death confirms it. We need to accelerate our timeline. Floyd nodded toward a separate evidence board. The twins' security is airtight. New protective detail is in place at your mother's house. The school has been briefed on enhanced protocols. Good. What about Diana's court appearance tomorrow? Security will be heavy. Brighton's lawyers have requested a bail hearing based on the new coercion claims. Victor considered this information. She won't get bail, but that's not the real play. They're using the court appearance to send a message or make a move we're not seeing yet. That night, Victor couldn't sleep. Holt's warning about Diana's contingencies nagged at him. Despite all his preparation, all his evidence, something still felt incomplete. At 3 a.m., he called the night security team at his mother's house. Status report on the twins. All secure, sir, the team leader reported. Both children asleep. Perimeter clear. No unusual activity. Victor ended the call, but couldn't shake his unease. On instinct, he drove to his mother's house, arriving just before dawn. The security team admitted him without question, having been briefed to expect him at any time. He checked on the twins, finding them safely asleep in their beds. His mother was already awake, reading in her study. Couldn't sleep? She asked as he entered. Loose ends, Victor replied, accepting the coffee she offered. I need your help with something. Margaret studied her son. You're worried about tomorrow. Diana's court appearance. I'm concerned about what we're missing, Victor admitted. Diana had access to my life for 8 years. There are connections I may not see because I'm too close to it. Margaret set down her book. What do you need from me? Perspective. Diana studied me, learned my patterns. What would she consider my blind spot? His mother considered the question carefully. Your children, she finally said. Not their physical safety. You've always been obsessive about security. But their emotional well-being. Diana would know that despite your outward coldness, you would do anything to protect the twins from emotional harm. Victor processed this insight. She'd used the children as emotional leverage. She already is, Margaret pointed out. Her coercion defense paints her as a victim, someone the children should pity and forgive. If they believe that narrative, they might turn against me eventually, Victor finished the thought. See me as the villain who punished their victimized mother. Exactly, Margaret confirmed. Diana is playing the long game. Even if she serves time, she's positioning herself for eventual reconciliation with the twins. When they're older, they might choose her version of events over yours. The realization struck Victor with unexpected force. He'd been focused on the legal battle, the financial maneuvering, the dismantling of Brighton's network. But Diana's most dangerous play was for the hearts and minds of his children, a battlefield where his usual tactical advantages meant nothing. I need to show the twins who she really is, Victor said, more to himself than his mother. Not tell them, show them, in a way they'll understand when they're older. Be careful, Victor, Margaret warned. Children see the world differently. What seems like justice to you might look like cruelty to them. Victor nodded, already formulating the final phase of his plan. I won't turn them against her. I'll simply ensure they have access to the unvarnished truth when they're ready for it. As dawn broke, Victor left his mother's house with renewed purpose. Diana's court appearance that day wasn't just a legal proceeding. It was the beginning of the final confrontation, a battle for the future that extended far beyond prison sentences and seized assets. He made a series of calls, setting new pieces in motion. By the time he arrived at the courthouse, everything was prepared for what would come next. Diana entered the courtroom looking appropriately subdued in a modest gray dress, her hair pulled back simply. Her lawyers had staged the appearance carefully. Gone was the wealthy socialite, replaced by a woman who appeared vulnerable and afraid. Victor watched impassively from his seat as her attorney argued passionately for bail, presenting affidavits from psychiatrists claiming Diana suffered from emotional abuse and coercive control during her marriage to Victor. Your Honor, Mrs. Mercer was a victim herself, the lawyer insisted. She acted under extreme duress, fearing not only for her own safety, but for her children's well-being. Mr. Holt exploited her vulnerability, as did her father. The prosecutor challenged these claims vigorously, presenting evidence of Diana's willing participation in the conspiracy. As the arguments continued, Victor noticed Diana watching him, gauging his reaction to the character assassination being performed in the courtroom. When it was his turn to testify, Victor spoke calmly about the evidence he'd discovered, the threats to his children, and the elaborate deception Diana had maintained. He never raised his voice, never showed anger, just presented facts with clinical precision. During cross-examination, Diana's attorney attempted to portray Victor as controlling and emotionally abusive. "Mr. Mercer, isn't it true that you monitored your wife's communications without her knowledge or consent? I installed security measures in my home after detecting unauthorized access to sensitive information related to government contracts," Victor replied evenly. "As the CEO of a security firm with classified clearance, I'm legally obligated to investigate potential breaches. And isn't it true that you controlled all the family finances, giving your wife only limited access to funds?" "My wife maintained sole control of her foundation, which received millions in funding annually," Victor countered. "The financial records show she transferred those funds to accounts controlled by Mr. Holt." At the end of the hearing, the judge denied bail, citing the serious nature of the charges and the risk of flight. As Diana was led away by marshals, she looked directly at Victor and mouthed words only he could see. "The twins will know." It was the confirmation Victor needed. Diana's contingency plan involved turning his children against him. She had prepared something: evidence, testimonials, manipulated recordings that would paint him as the villain when the twins were old enough to understand. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions as Victor walked to his car. He made no comment, maintaining the stoic facade that had become his public image throughout the scandal. Back at the warehouse, Floyd was waiting with updates. "We found it," he said without preamble. "Diana's insurance policy. It was hidden in a safe deposit box registered to her childhood nanny." Victor examined the contents spread across the table. Documents, flash drives, photographs, and handwritten journals, all carefully crafted to present Diana as a desperate mother trying to escape a controlling, dangerous husband. "She's been building this archive for years," Floyd observed, "long before the actual conspiracy began. It's quite thorough: manipulated recordings of arguments, edited emails, testimonials from friends claiming you were abusive." Victor nodded slowly. "All designed to convince Leo and Lily that their mother was the victim and I was the monster." "What do you want to do with it?" Floyd asked. Victor considered the question carefully. "Preserve it exactly as is, then create a parallel archive with the truth, the actual recordings, the unedited emails, the evidence of conspiracy. When the twins are older, they'll have both versions and can judge for themselves." "And Diana?" Victor's expression hardened. "She needs to understand that this final play has failed too. That no matter what she does, she can't turn my children against me or rewrite history to cast herself as the victim." "How do you plan to show her that?" Victor outlined his strategy quickly. Floyd listened, his expression growing increasingly concerned. "That's crossing a line, Victor," he finally said. "Everything up to now has been legal, if ruthless. This is different. The law has limits," Victor replied. "Diana, Brighton, and their network don't respect those limits. Neither will I when it comes to protecting my children, not just their physical safety, but their understanding of the truth." After Floyd reluctantly agreed to assist, Victor made one final call to DA Vance. "I need a private conversation with Diana before her transfer to federal custody," he requested. "That's highly irregular," Vance objected. "Her attorneys would need to be present." "Not if she waives that right," Victor countered. "And she will, because she believes she still has leverage over me." "What leverage?" "Something she thinks I don't know about. Her contingency plan involving my children. Give us 15 minutes alone, with recording equipment disabled." Vance was silent for a moment. "I don't want to know why, do I?" "It's better if you don't," Victor confirmed. That evening, in a bare concrete room at the detention center, Victor waited as Diana was brought in, handcuffed and wearing prison orange. The guards removed her restraints and left them alone as arranged. "I'm surprised you wanted to see me," Diana said, taking the seat across from him. "Especially without lawyers present." I wanted to speak frankly, Victor replied. About your insurance policy. Diana's composure faltered briefly. I don't know what you're talking about. The safe deposit box in Matilda Jenkins' name. Your childhood nanny. Victor watched realization dawn on Diana's face. Yes, I found it. The journals, the recordings, the testimonials, all designed to convince Leo and Lily that you were the victim. They deserve to know the truth, Diana hissed, dropping the vulnerable facade. That their father is a controlling monster who destroyed their mother's life. That would be quite the story, Victor agreed, if any of it were true. But we both know it isn't. It doesn't matter what's true, Diana countered. Only what they believe. And children always want to believe the best of their mother. Victor leaned forward. That's where you're wrong, Diana. Children want the truth. And I'm going to make sure they have it. All of it, including parts you don't know exist. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Diana's eyes. What are you talking about? Every room in our house was monitored, not just for security, but for preservation of the truth. Every conversation you had planning to kidnap them, every call with your father and Holt discussing them as pawns in your game. I have it all. And when Leo and Lily are old enough, they'll hear it in your own voice. You're bluffing, Diana whispered, but her confidence was cracking. Victor pulled out a small recorder and pressed play. Diana's voice filled the room. The twins are just collateral. Victor's obsessed with his legacy. We use them, we control him. That's not, I never, Diana stammered. Your contingency plan failed, Victor said quietly, stopping the recording. Like all your other plans. You will never turn my children against me. You will never rewrite our history. You've lost, Diana. Completely and finally. Diana's face contorted with rage. This isn't over, Victor. You think you've won? Brighton's network goes deeper than you know. There are people you haven't even identified who will make sure you pay for this. I'm counting on them to try, Victor replied, standing to leave. Because every enemy who comes for me is another thread I can pull to unravel what remains of your conspiracy. As Victor walked toward the door, Diana called after him, her voice desperate. The twins will hate you when they learn what you've done to me. Victor turned back one last time. No, Diana. They'll understand that I did what was necessary to protect them from a mother who saw them as nothing more than leverage. As the door closed behind him, Victor felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. Phase 2 was complete. All the pieces were in place for the final act. Not just legal justice, but a reckoning that would ensure Diana and her conspirators could never threaten his family again. Chapter 7. Execution. 6 months after Diana's arrest, Victor sat in his home office reviewing reports from his global security teams. Senator Brighton had been sentenced to 20 years for espionage and conspiracy. Russell Holt faced multiple life sentences for arms dealing and money laundering. The political and financial network they had built was in ruins, with dozens of co-conspirators either imprisoned or cooperating with authorities. Diana's trial was scheduled to begin in 3 weeks. Despite the mountain of evidence against her, Brighton had leveraged his remaining influence to assemble a formidable defense team. They continued to push the narrative that Diana had been a victim of coercion and manipulation by both her father and Holt. Floyd entered with the daily security briefing. The twins' school reported another incident. A woman claiming to be Diana's cousin attempted to contact Leo during recess. Security intercepted her before any conversation occurred. Victor frowned. Identification, false credentials. When questioned, she refused to cooperate. Local police have her in custody, but she hasn't been linked to any known associates yet. Increase security at the school, Victor instructed, and move the twins to the Vermont property this weekend as planned. I don't want them anywhere near Connecticut during Diana's trial. Floyd hesitated before continuing. There's something else. Diana's attorneys filed a motion requesting supervised visitation with the children. They're arguing that prolonged separation is causing psychological harm. Victor's expression hardened. Denied immediately. The court already ruled that no contact is permitted while charges are pending. Her team is persistent. They've scheduled a hearing with a different judge, claiming new psychological evaluations support their position. Have Bernard handle it, Victor said dismissively. The federal charges alone preclude any visitation rights. After Floyd left, Victor turned to the wall of evidence that remained in his office, a scaled-down version of the comprehensive case file. Something about the recent attempts to contact the twins bothered him. Diana remained in federal custody with limited communication privileges. These coordinated efforts suggested she still had resources and allies Victor hadn't identified. He activated the secure line to his contact at the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I need Diana Mercer's complete communication log for the past month. Calls, visitors, correspondence, everything. Within an hour, Victor was reviewing Diana's prison records. She had received visits from her attorneys and one approved family member, a cousin named Patricia Loden. Victor immediately ran a background check on Loden, discovering she had visited Diana weekly for the past 2 months. Floyd, Victor called over the intercom. Give me everything on Patricia Loden, age 43, resident of Baltimore. Priority 1. The results were troubling. Patricia Loden had no criminal record, but had worked for a private intelligence firm with connections to several foreign governments. The woman intercepted at the twins' school matched Loden's description, but had used false identification. Victor made another call to his federal contact. I need the surveillance footage from Diana Mercer's meetings with Patricia Loden. There's a security concern regarding my children. The footage arrived encrypted on Victor's secure server. He watched each meeting carefully, noting that the women spoke quietly, often with their heads close together to avoid the microphones. In the third meeting, Victor observed Diana passing something small to Loden beneath the table, possibly a note or memory card. She's still running operations from inside, Victor murmured to himself. The realization was both concerning and useful. If Diana was violating the terms of her pretrial confinement, it would strengthen the case against her and eliminate any possibility of the reduced charges her lawyers were seeking. Victor compiled the evidence and sent it to DA Vance with a brief message. Diana Mercer is communicating with outside operatives through her cousin. My children may be at risk. Vance responded immediately. Cell search authorized. Loden being brought in for questioning. Additional security measures implemented at detention center. That evening, Victor received an unexpected call from Vance. We found something during the cell search, she reported. A phone, cleverly hidden in Diana's personal items. The call history shows frequent communication with a prepaid number we haven't identified yet. And Loden? Victor asked. Denied everything initially, but we found multiple burner phones in her possession, along with $50,000 in cash. She's talking now, claiming Diana was trying to arrange for the twins to be taken to Switzerland through a network of associates. Victor's grip tightened on the phone. Another kidnapping attempt. It appears so, Vance confirmed. We're adding additional charges of attempted kidnapping and conspiracy. This eliminates any chance of the reduced charges her defense was seeking. After ending the call, Victor summoned Floyd for an emergency meeting. Diana is still active. She was planning another attempt to take the twins. Floyd processed this information quickly. The Vermont move is compromised then. They'll be expecting it. Exactly. We need to change plans. Victor pulled up a map on his computer. My mother's property in Montana. It's remote, secure, and not associated with me officially. The property is held by a trust under her maiden name. When do we move? Tonight, Victor decided. Quietly, with minimal personnel. Use the medical evacuation protocol we established. It allows for immediate removal of the children from school without alerting the standard security channels. While Floyd mobilized the security team, Victor visited the twins at his mother's house. Leo and Lily were playing a board game in the sunroom, monitored by their new nanny, a former Secret Service agent named Teresa. Daddy, Lily exclaimed, running to hug him. Are you staying for dinner? Miss Teresa made spaghetti. Victor embraced his daughter, then his son. Actually, I have a surprise. How would you like to take a trip to see the mountains? We can leave tonight. Leo's eyes widened. Like a vacation? What about school? I've arranged for your lessons to continue wherever we go, Victor assured him. Think of it as an adventure. Will Grandma come too? Lily asked. Of course. It's her special house we're going to. Victor knelt to their level. I need you both to pack quickly, just like we practiced in our drills. Can you do that? The twins nodded solemnly and hurried upstairs with Teresa. Victor found his mother in the kitchen. Diana, Margaret asked simply. Still dangerous, Victor confirmed. She was orchestrating another attempt to take the twins through her cousin. Margaret nodded, her expression grim. Montana, then? I'll pack immediately. Thank you, Victor said, squeezing his mother's hand. For understanding. Understand more than you think, Margaret replied. I've always known what you're capable of, Victor. Just remember that whatever you do, the twins will eventually learn about it. Make sure you can justify your actions to them someday. The warning gave Victor pause. His mother was right. Every action he took would eventually be judged by his children. The question was whether they would understand the necessity of his methods when faced with Diana's relentless attempts to control them. 4 hours later, Victor's private jet took off from a small airfield outside Hartford. The twins were asleep in the cabin, along with Margaret and Teresa. Floyd had arranged for a decoy operation to make it appear they had gone to Vermont as originally planned. Victor used the secure satellite connection to contact DA Vance again. I've moved my family to a secure location. What's the status on Loden? Cooperating fully now, Vance reported. She's identified 3 other operatives involved in the kidnapping plan. Federal agents are moving to apprehend them now. And Diana? Isolated in maximum security with no outside contact beyond her primary attorney. The additional charges have been filed. Her trial has been moved up given the new evidence of ongoing criminal activity. Victor ended the call satisfied that Diana's immediate threat had been neutralized, but her persistence troubled him. Even with her assets frozen and her father imprisoned, she had managed to orchestrate another operation. It suggested connections and resources Victor hadn't yet identified, a hidden network still loyal to Brighton and, by extension, to Diana. In Montana, Victor established a new security protocol at his mother's sprawling ranch property. Remote and self-sufficient, with its own power generation and water supply, the property had been Victor's contingency location for years. Few people knew of its connection to the Mercer family. 2 days after their arrival, Floyd joined them with troubling news. We've identified a pattern in Brighton's visitor logs. Before Diana's arrest, he had regular meetings with a former military intelligence officer named Walter Gaines. After his own arrest, those meetings continued under the guise of legal consultations. Victor recognized the name immediately. Gaines was discharged for selling classified information 10 years ago. Charges were dropped mysteriously. Exactly. He's been operating as a private intelligence contractor since then, with clients including several hostile governments. We believe he's been coordinating the remnants of Brighton's network. Find him, Victor ordered. Whatever it takes. Over the next week, Victor divided his time between securing the Montana property and directing the hunt for Gaines. The twins adjusted to their new environment quickly, enjoying the horses and wide-open spaces of the ranch. Victor arranged for tutors to continue their education while maintaining strict security protocols. 8 days after relocating to Montana, Victor received an encrypted message from Floyd, Gaines located, operating from a private compound in Wyoming. Surveillance confirms communication with Diana's attorney. Victor studied the satellite imagery of Gaines' compound. It was well fortified with private security, unusual for a supposed consultant. More concerning were the communications intercepts showing regular encrypted transmissions to overseas locations associated with arms dealers who had worked with Holt. He's rebuilding the network, Victor concluded, using Diana's legal team as a conduit for information. Victor contacted DA Vance with the evidence, but her response was frustrating. We need more direct proof linking Gaines to criminal activity. Suspicious communications aren't enough for a warrant. Recognizing the limitations of legal channels, Victor made a decision. That night, he contacted former teammates from his Special Forces days who now worked in private security. I need a non-official operation, Victor explained to Travis Redmond, his former second-in-command. Surveillance and intelligence gathering only. Target is a former intelligence officer running operations against my family. Off the books completely? Travis asked. Completely. This stays between us. Travis didn't hesitate. Send the details. I'll assemble a team. 3 days later, Travis delivered the results of their covert surveillance. Gaines was indeed coordinating what remained of Brighton's network, using encrypted communications to contact former associates of Holt. More disturbing were the plans they discovered, not just for helping Diana, but for eliminating Victor. They're planning an assassination, Travis reported bluntly. Time to coincide with Diana's trial. With he gone, they believe the evidence against the broader conspiracy dies too. Victor reviewed the intelligence calmly. And the twins? Part of the plan includes extracting them during the confusion following your death. They have detailed schedules, security protocols, information that could only have come from someone close to your operations. We have a leak, Victor concluded. Someone on my security team or legal team is feeding them information. It appears so, Travis agreed. We need to flush them out. Victor devised a strategy immediately. Feed false information through separate channels. Different extraction plans, different schedules. See which one Gaines acts on. The trap was set carefully. Through various channels, Victor's team disseminated conflicting information about his plans to return to Connecticut for Diana's trial. Each version included different dates, different security protocols, different transportation arrangements, each shared with a limited group of individuals. 4 days later, the traitor revealed himself when Gaines' team began preparations based on information shared exclusively with Bernard Wyatt's legal assistant, Michael Trent. Surveillance confirmed Trent had been communicating with Gaines through an encrypted messaging app. I want everything on Trent, Victor instructed Floyd. Family, finances, connections, anything that explains his motivation. The investigation revealed that Trent's sister had been involved with one of Holt's associates years earlier. Financial records showed regular payments to an offshore account in Trent's name, beginning shortly after he joined Bernard's firm. He's been their plant from the beginning, Floyd concluded, positioned specifically to monitor your legal strategies. Which means they've known our moves before we made them, Victor said grimly. Until now, Victor arranged for Trent to receive very specific information about an apparent vulnerability in the security plan for Diana's upcoming trial. A fabricated detail suggesting Victor would be present in a particular location at a specific time. When Gaines' team mobilized based on this information, federal agents were waiting. The resulting raid captured not only Gaines, but 5 of his operatives and a cache of weapons and intelligence materials. The evidence was unambiguous, detailed plans to assassinate Victor and abduct the twins. D.A. Vance called Victor personally to deliver the news. Gaines and his team are in custody. The evidence links them directly to both Brighton and Diana through financial transactions and communications. This effectively ends any chance of Diana presenting herself as a victim at trial. And Trent, Victor asked, arrested this morning. He's already talking, hoping for leniency. His information should help us identify any remaining elements of the network. After ending the call, Victor gazed out at the Montana mountains, watching as the twins rode horses with their grandmother in the distance. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but he knew the fight wasn't over. Diana would continue to seek ways to strike at him, to reclaim the twins, to rewrite the narrative of her crimes. Victor's phone chimed with a message from Floyd. Diana requesting meeting. Says she has information about additional threats to the twins. Victor considered the request carefully. Diana was manipulative, but she wouldn't fabricate threats to the children, not when doing so would further damage her legal position. If she claimed to have information, it was likely genuine, meant as leverage to improve her situation. Arrange it, Victor replied. Maximum security protocols. No recording devices, no attorneys present. 2 days later, Victor sat across from Diana in a secure room at the Federal Detention Center. She looked haggard, the months of incarceration having stripped away her polished facade. You look well, Victor, she said, her voice dripping with resentment. Montana agrees with you. Victor didn't react to the revelation that she knew their location. You claim to have information about threats to the twins. Diana leaned forward. Brighton's network isn't just about politics and arms dealing. There's a deeper level you haven't touched. People who consider the twins valuable for reasons beyond leverage over you. Explain, Victor demanded. Genetic research, Diana said simply. The twins' DNA is unique. Identical twins with specific genetic markers Brighton's associates have been studying for years. Why do you think I was selected for this operation? My genetic profile, combined with yours, produced exactly what they wanted. Victor maintained his composure despite the shock of this revelation. You're claiming our children were part of some genetic experiment? Not exactly an experiment, Diana clarified. More like long-term research subjects. Brighton arranged their conception deliberately, using fertility treatments I told you were just to help us conceive. The doctors, the clinic, all part of the operation. The implications were staggering. If true, it meant the conspiracy had begun before his relationship with Diana, that his children's very existence was the result of calculated manipulation. Why tell me this now? Victor asked, his voice betraying nothing of his inner turmoil. Because they won't stop coming for them, Diana replied. Brighton's associates have invested years and millions in this research. The twins are irreplaceable to their project. Kill me, imprison me, destroy everyone you've identified so far. They'll still come. You expect me to believe you're suddenly concerned for their welfare? Victor's skepticism was evident. I'm their mother, Diana said fiercely. I may have used them, but I never intended them harm. These people don't care if they're damaged in the process of their research. Victor studied her, searching for the lie. Finding none, he asked, What do you want in exchange for names? Protection, Diana answered immediately. Not freedom. I know that's not possible now. But a secure facility away from Brighton's reach. He'll eliminate me as a liability if he can. Brighton is finished, Victor pointed out. His power is gone. Diana laughed bitterly. You still don't understand. Brighton was never the top of the chain. He answered to people you haven't even identified yet, people who don't appear in any of your evidence boards or federal investigations. Victor considered his options carefully. If Diana was telling the truth, the threat to the twins was far greater than he had realized. If she was lying, he lost nothing by appearing to cooperate while verifying her claims. Names, he demanded. Give me something I can verify immediately. Dr. Alan Farrow, Diana said without hesitation, Chief of Genetic Research at Meridian Laboratories. Officially, they develop agricultural genetics. Unofficially, they run human genetic research funded by a consortium Brighton represented. Victor committed the name to memory. If this checks out, I'll arrange the protection you're requesting. If it doesn't, you'll face additional charges for obstruction. Diana nodded. Check Farrow's travel schedule. He visits specific clinics every 6 months. The twins should have been part of his latest observation cohort. As Victor stood to leave, Diana added, There's one more thing you should know. The twins aren't identical by natural chance. They were engineered that way, and they carry genetic markers designed for specific traits that wouldn't manifest until puberty. What traits? Victor asked, a cold dread settling in his stomach. Enhanced intelligence, physical capabilities, stress resistance. The perfect operatives for the next generation. Brighton called it Project Legacy. The twins are just 2 of several dozen children born to carefully selected parents. Victor left the detention center with his mind reeling. If Diana was telling the truth, it would transform his understanding of the conspiracy and the danger to his children. It would also mean that Leo and Lily were not merely his legacy, but unwitting subjects in a program with implications he could barely comprehend. Within hours, Floyd had confirmed key elements of Diana's story. Dr. Alan Farrow existed, his travel schedule matched Diana's description, and Meridian Laboratories received funding through shell companies linked to Brighton's associates. There's more, Floyd reported grimly. The twins' pediatrician for their first 3 years, Dr. Elise Warren, worked for a clinic with ties to Meridian. She submitted regular reports on their development to a research database we've traced to Farrow's department. Victor absorbed this confirmation stoically. Find Farrow. I want to know everything, his research, his associates, his security. And I want the complete files on the twins from this program. What about Diana's protection request? Floyd asked. Arrange it, Victor decided. Not for her sake, but because we need what she knows. And because the twins shouldn't lose their mother to an assassination, regardless of her crimes. The revelation about Project Legacy changed everything. What had begun as a personal betrayal and criminal conspiracy now involved his children's very genetic makeup and future. The vengeance Victor had pursued so methodically was no longer sufficient. He needed to eliminate not just Diana's ability to harm his family, but the entire system that had created the threat in the first place. As night fell over the Montana ranch, Victor watched the twins sleeping peacefully, unaware of the forces that had shaped their existence or the battles still to come. His resolve hardened into something beyond revenge, a determination to ensure that those who had used his children as pawns in their genetic game would face a reckoning unlike anything they could imagine. The final phase of his plan was taking shape, not just justice or vengeance, but a complete dismantling of Project Legacy and everyone connected to it. Diana, Brighton, Holt, they had been merely the visible faces of a deeper conspiracy. Now Victor would reach into the shadows and destroy the true architects of his family's manipulation. Chapter 8. Checkmate. 3 weeks after Diana's revelation about Project Legacy, Victor stood in the secure operations center he'd established beneath his Montana ranch. The walls were covered with new evidence boards mapping the structure of Meridian Laboratories and the consortium behind it. Dr. Alan Farrow's image featured prominently, connected by red lines to government officials, research facilities, and offshore funding sources. Farrow's scheduled to visit the Seattle facility next Tuesday, Floyd reported, pointing to surveillance photos of a nondescript building. Security is tight. Private contractors with military backgrounds, advanced surveillance systems. Getting to him won't be easy. We don't need to get to him physically, Victor replied. We need his research data and communications. The Seattle facility's network security. Sophisticated but not impenetrable. Our cyber team identified potential access points through their climate control systems. Victor nodded. Prepare the intrusion. I want complete access before Farrow arrives. Every file, every communication, especially anything related to the twins or Project Legacy. As Floyd coordinated with the cyber team, Victor reviewed the latest security reports on the twins. Leo and Lily had adjusted well to life on the ranch, but Victor had noticed subtle changes in their behavior. Leo had begun solving complex mathematical problems far beyond his grade level. Lily had developed an uncanny memory for details and patterns. The genetic enhancements Diana had mentioned were becoming increasingly evident. Victor's secure phone chimed with a message from D.A. Vance. Diana's cooperation confirmed. Multiple arrests based on her information. Transfer to secure facility approved by federal judge. The protection arrangement for Diana had proven valuable. Her detailed knowledge of Project Legacy had already led to the identification and arrest of 3 scientists involved in the program. But Victor knew Diana's cooperation was self-serving. She was positioning herself for eventual leniency, perhaps even a reduced sentence that might someday allow her to re-enter the twins' lives. That evening, Victor visited the twins for their bedtime routine. As he tucked Lily into bed, she asked the question he'd been dreading. Daddy, when can we see Mommy? It's been a really long time. Victor sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. Mommy did some things that weren't right, sweetheart. She has to answer for those things before she can see you again. Was it our fault? Leo asked from his bed across the room. Did we do something wrong? No, Victor said firmly. Nothing about this is your fault. Your mother made choices that had nothing to do with you or anything you did. But she loves us, right? Lily persisted, her eyes wide and vulnerable. Victor felt the weight of the question. The easy answer would be to say yes, to preserve some semblance of maternal love in his children's minds. But he had promised himself never to lie to them about Diana's true nature. Your mother cares for you in her way, he said carefully, but she made choices that put you in danger. My job is to protect you, even if that means keeping you apart from people who might harm you. The twins seemed to accept this explanation, though Victor could see the confusion and sadness in their eyes. As he kissed them goodnight, He renewed his determination to dismantle Project Legacy completely, not just for justice or revenge, but to ensure his children could someday understand the full truth of their origins. The following day, Victor's cyber team successfully penetrated Meridian Laboratories' secure servers. The data they extracted confirmed Diana's claims and revealed disturbing details about Project Legacy. The twins were indeed part of a cohort of genetically enhanced children, selected for specific traits and monitored throughout their development. There are 38 children in the program, Floyd reported as they reviewed the files, all born to carefully selected parents, typically one parent aware of the program, one unaware. The genetic modifications include enhanced cognitive processing, accelerated learning capability, and physiological adaptations for stress resistance. Victor studied the clinical reports on his children with growing anger. The purpose? According to internal communications, they're creating the next generation of intelligence operatives and military assets. Children who can be shaped from birth to serve specific functions within a global security apparatus controlled by the consortium. And the consortium itself? Floyd brought up another screen showing a complex organizational chart. A shadow network of former intelligence officials, genetic researchers, and private military contractors, funded by a group of billionaires with interest in defense technology and pharmaceutical development. Senator Brighton represented their political interests in Washington. Victor identified the names at the top of the chart, men and women of enormous wealth and influence, operating beyond conventional scrutiny. They had treated his children as experiments, their lives as data points in a program designed to create controllable human assets. Do they know we've accessed their systems? Victor asked. Not yet. We're using a passive intrusion that mimics routine system processes. But once we extract the complete dataset, they'll eventually detect the breach. Then we move quickly. I want everything. Research protocols, funding sources, communications between consortium members. And I want the complete files on all 38 children. Over the next 48 hours, Victor's team extracted terabytes of data from Meridian servers. The information painted a disturbing picture of Project Legacy's scope and ambition. Beyond the genetic modifications, the program included behavioral conditioning protocols designed to activate during adolescence, triggering predetermined psychological responses that would make the children susceptible to specific training regimens. Victor was reviewing these protocols when Floyd burst into the command center, his expression grave. We've been compromised. Meridian's security systems detected our intrusion. They're implementing countermeasures and purging servers. Did we get everything? Victor demanded. Most of it, but they know we have the data now. Their emergency protocols include contingency plans for exposure. Victor immediately activated the ranch's enhanced security systems. Full lockdown. Triple the perimeter guards. No one approaches the twins without direct authorization from me. There's more, Floyd added. Dr. Farrow has disappeared. Missed his scheduled appearance in Seattle. Hasn't been seen in 36 hours. He's either running or being extracted by the consortium, Victor concluded. Either way, we've lost our primary target. Not necessarily, Floyd countered, pulling up surveillance footage. Our team in Washington, D.C. spotted Farrow entering a private club frequented by high-level government officials. He met with this man. The screen showed Farrow shaking hands with a distinguished older man Victor recognized immediately. William Hargrove, Deputy Director of National Intelligence and a longtime associate of Senator Brighton. The government connection, Victor murmured. Project Legacy has official protection. At some level, yes, Floyd confirmed. But the documentation we extracted suggests it's a rogue operation, not sanctioned by full oversight committees. Hargrove and a select group have been providing cover and resources while keeping the program off official records. This changed the calculus significantly. Victor couldn't just dismantle a private conspiracy. He was potentially going up against elements within the intelligence community itself. We need leverage, Victor decided. Something Hargrove and his associates can't afford to have exposed. Floyd hesitated. There is something. Among the files we extracted was a recording of a meeting between Hargrove, Brighton, and 3 consortium members. They explicitly discuss using the enhanced children as deniable assets for operations against American targets. Treason, Victor said flatly. Conspiracy against the United States. Exactly. But exposing it means exposing the entire project legacy, including the identities of all 38 children. Victor faced the most difficult decision of his campaign. Exposing Project Legacy would protect his children from the consortium's control, but would simultaneously reveal their genetic modifications to the world. Leo and Lily would forever be marked as products of an illegal program, subjects of public scrutiny and potential discrimination. There has to be another way, Victor said finally. A targeted exposure that protects the children while eliminating the threat. After hours of strategic planning, Victor developed a two-phase approach. First, they would use the evidence of treason to force Hargrove and his government associates to withdraw support from Project Legacy. Second, they would systematically dismantle the consortium's infrastructure while securing legal protections for all children involved. The execution began with a carefully orchestrated leak to a trusted contact at the Justice Department. Evidence of Hargrove's treasonous activities without specific details about Project Legacy itself. Within hours, federal agents moved to secure Hargrove's offices and residence. Simultaneously, Victor deployed private security teams to monitor each of the consortium's key members. Any attempt to access Project Legacy data or contact the families of involved children would be immediately detected and prevented. 3 days into the operation, Victor received a secure call from his contact in the Justice Department. Hargrove is cooperating fully. He's identified 7 other government officials involved in providing cover for Project Legacy. All are being detained and questioned. And the consortium members? Victor asked. We have warrants for their financial records and communications. The evidence you provided has opened multiple avenues of investigation. But there's a complication. 2 consortium members have disappeared, likely fled the country. And we're receiving diplomatic pressure from several foreign governments to limit the scope of our investigation. Victor had anticipated this. Those governments have their own versions of Project Legacy. They're afraid exposure will compromise their programs. Exactly, which puts us in a difficult position. How far do we push this without creating an international incident? As far as necessary to secure the safety of the children involved, Victor replied firmly. I have contingency plans for international pressure. Those contingencies involve the final piece of leverage Victor had extracted from Meridian's servers. Evidence that the consortium had been selling genetic technology to hostile foreign powers, violating international treaties and U.S. export controls. This evidence, if released, would force even reluctant governments to distance themselves from Project Legacy and its architects. Victor was preparing to implement this phase when Floyd reported a disturbing development. Diana's been moved from the secure facility. The transfer was authorized using proper protocols, but the destination facility doesn't exist. The consortium, Victor realized immediately, they're extracting her as a resource. She knows details about the twins that aren't in the official records. This was a complication Victor hadn't fully anticipated. Despite her crimes, Diana remained the twins' mother and a potential source of emotional manipulation against them. In the consortium's hands, she could become a powerful weapon in their efforts to regain control of the Project Legacy children. Find her, Victor ordered. Use every resource we have and increase security around the twins. No one gets within a mile of this property without complete verification. As Victor's team launched a global search for Diana, he received an unexpected communication, a heavily encrypted message routed through multiple proxy servers. The sender was Dr. Alan Farrow. I need to meet. Information critical to your children's future. Come alone or not at all. It was almost certainly a trap, but it also represented an opportunity to confront one of the primary architects of Project Legacy directly. Victor formulated a plan that would allow him to appear to be meeting Farrow's conditions while maintaining operational security. The meeting was arranged at an abandoned research facility in Idaho, selected by Farrow as neutral territory. Victor arrived by helicopter, apparently alone, but with multiple surveillance drones providing overhead coverage and a tactical team positioned discreetly nearby. Pharaoh waited inside the facility's main laboratory, a gaunt man in his 60s with piercing eyes and the careful movements of someone accustomed to precision work. "Mr. Mercer," he greeted Victor. "I appreciate your coming. Where's Diana?" Victor asked without preamble. Pharaoh seemed genuinely surprised by the question. "I have no information about your wife's whereabouts. Is she not in federal custody?" Either Pharaoh was an exceptional actor, or he truly wasn't involved in Diana's extraction. Victor decided to proceed cautiously. "You wanted to meet? Talk." Pharaoh nodded, gesturing to a secure laptop on a nearby table. "What you've discovered about Project Legacy is only the surface. The genetic modifications implemented in your children and the others weren't simply about enhancing natural capabilities. They included safeguards, biological triggers designed to activate at puberty." "What kind of triggers?" Victor demanded. "Dependency protocols," Pharaoh explained clinically. "The enhanced traits, intelligence, physical capabilities, stress resistance, they come with a biochemical cost. Without regular treatments, beginning at age 12, the children will experience progressive neurological degradation." The implication was clear. The consortium had built in a way to ensure the children would be dependent on them, a biological leash that would force compliance. "You're claiming my children will become ill unless they receive treatments only you can provide," Victor said, his voice dangerously calm. "Not just ill, Mr. Mercer. The degradation would be fatal within 2 years of onset. It was the consortium's insurance policy against precisely the kind of exposure you've initiated." "Why tell me this?" Victor asked, studying Pharaoh's face for deception. "Because I can provide the treatment protocol," Pharaoh replied. "I designed it, and I've come to regret my role in this program. The children deserve lives free from the consortium's control." Victor remained skeptical. "Your sudden attack of conscience is convenient." "Not sudden," Pharaoh countered. "I've been documenting the program's ethical violations for years, building a case against the consortium. Your actions accelerated my timeline." To prove his sincerity, Pharaoh opened the laptop and displayed detailed medical protocols and formulas, the treatments the children would need to remain healthy without remaining under the consortium's control. "This information has been deleted from Meridian servers," Pharaoh explained. "The consortium intends to use it as leverage to force the families to surrender the children once symptoms begin appearing." Victor examined the medical data carefully. It appeared legitimate, consistent with the genetic information he'd already obtained from Meridian servers. "Even if I believe you," Victor said finally, "why would you betray your employers? They'll kill you for this." Pharaoh's expression hardened. "Because they crossed a line. The original project was about advancement, creating the next evolution of human capability. But the consortium weaponized my research, turned these children into assets rather than pioneers. And they've begun implementing more aggressive protocols in a new generation of subjects, protocols that amount to complete biological control." As Victor considered Pharaoh's claims, his tactical team alerted him to approaching vehicles, multiple SUVs moving rapidly toward the facility. "You were followed," Victor accused Pharaoh. "Or you were," Pharaoh countered, looking genuinely alarmed. "The consortium has resources within every intelligence agency. If they tracked either of us..." Victor cut him off, grabbing the laptop and pulling Pharaoh toward a rear exit. "Move. Now." They barely reached the exit when the first explosive charge detonated, collapsing part of the facility's roof. Victor shoved Pharaoh ahead of him as they ran toward a concealed position where extraction had been prearranged in case of emergency. Gunfire erupted behind them as armed men in tactical gear poured from the SUVs. Victor's own team engaged from their positions, providing covering fire as Victor and Pharaoh reached the extraction point where a camouflaged helicopter waited. As they lifted off, Pharaoh clutched the laptop to his chest. "The formula must be preserved. Without it, all 38 children will die." Victor studied the geneticist, still uncertain of his true motives, but convinced of the threat to the children. "Who sent the team?" "The consortium," or someone inside the government? At this point, the distinction hardly matters, Pharaoh replied grimly. Hargrove's cooperation has fractured their alliance, but both sides want the same thing: to contain the exposure and regain control of the Project Legacy subjects. Back at the Montana ranch, Victor established Pharaoh in a secure medical facility where the geneticist could work on refining the treatment protocol while under constant surveillance. The attack at the Idaho facility confirmed that despite the legal pressure, the consortium remained operational and dangerous. Floyd updated Victor on Diana's status. We've tracked her to a private medical facility in Switzerland. Surveillance confirms she's there voluntarily, not as a prisoner. She's meeting regularly with this man. The screen showed Diana in conversation with a distinguished-looking man in his 70s, Conrad Whitmore, chairman of a pharmaceutical conglomerate and one of the consortium's founding members. She switched sides, Victor concluded. Again, appears so. Intercepted communications suggest she's providing detailed information about the twins' development that wasn't included in the official records. This development changed the strategic landscape significantly. Diana wasn't just a threat as the twins' mother. She was actively working with the consortium to help them regain control of Leo and Lily. Victor made a difficult decision. Prepare extraction options for Diana from the Swiss facility. We need to neutralize her as a source of information. An extraction from Switzerland is high risk, Floyd cautioned. International complications, diplomatic issues. I'm aware, Victor cut him off. But Diana has made her choice. She's now an active threat to the twins' safety and autonomy. As Victor's team prepared the extraction plan, DA Vance called with disturbing news. The case against Diana is being reevaluated based on new evidence suggesting coercion. There's political pressure to reduce charges in exchange for her cooperation against larger targets in the consortium. She's manipulating the system again, Victor said, unsurprised, using her knowledge of Project Legacy as leverage. Exactly, and it's working. Several key officials see her as more valuable as a witness than as a defendant. This confirmed what Victor had suspected. Diana was playing both sides, positioning herself to emerge for the collapse of Project Legacy with reduced legal consequences and potential access to the twins in the future. She can't be allowed to rewrite history again, Victor said firmly. I have evidence of her current collaboration with Whitmore. She's not a cooperative witness. She's actively working to undermine the investigation. The next 48 hours were a careful dance of legal maneuvers and covert operations. While Victor's legal team provided evidence of Diana's duplicity to the Justice Department, his operational team finalized plans for her extraction from Switzerland if legal means failed to neutralize her threat. Meanwhile, Dr. Pharaoh completed his analysis of the treatment protocol, confirming that it could be administered without the children ever knowing the true nature of their genetic modifications. What would appear to be routine vaccinations would prevent the neurological degradation the consortium had built into their genetic code. The treatment can be standardized and provided to all 38 children, Pharaoh explained. Once the initial course is complete, annual boosters will maintain stabilization permanently. And no side effects? Victor pressed. None that would be noticeable. The enhanced capabilities will remain intact. The children will simply be free of the dependency the consortium engineered. This represented the first real victory in Victor's campaign against Project Legacy. The ability to free the children from the biological control mechanism without compromising their health or revealing their modified status. Victor was reviewing the treatment protocol when Floyd burst into the lab, his expression grave. We have a situation. Diana's gone from the Swiss facility, and she left this. He handed Victor a tablet, displaying a video message from Diana. Her appearance was polished again, her confidence restored as she spoke directly to the camera. Victor, I know you're watching. By now you've discovered the dependency protocol and think you found a solution. What you don't know is that the twins' modification included personalized markers. The standard treatment won't work for them. They need a customized formula based on their specific genetic profile. She paused, her expression almost triumphant. I have that formula, and I'm willing to provide it in exchange for very reasonable terms, supervised visitation with my children, and a reduced sentence served in a minimum security facility. My attorneys will be in touch with specific proposals. As the video ended, Victor turned to Pharaoh. Is this possible? Personalized markers that would make the standard treatment ineffective. Pharaoh hesitated. It's possible. Some subjects received customized modifications based on their parents' genetic contributions. I would need to see their complete genetic profile to determine if Leo and Lily have such markers. Run the analysis, Victor ordered. I want to know if Diana is bluffing or if the twins truly need a customized treatment. While Pharaoh worked, Victor consulted with his legal team about Diana's proposal. The terms she suggested were crafted to seem reasonable to outside observers. A mother seeking limited contact with her children in humane conditions during her incarceration. But Victor recognized the strategy behind the apparent reasonableness. Diana was creating a narrative where refusing her terms would make him appear vindictive and cruel. If she truly has information critical to the twins' health, courts might view her terms favorably, Bernard advised. Medical necessity creates compelling grounds for negotiation. And if she's bluffing? Victor asked. Then we need proof before rejecting her offer outright. Otherwise, she controls the narrative. After 24 hours of intensive analysis, Pharaoh delivered his verdict. The twins do have personalized genetic markers. The standard treatment would be partially effective but not completely. Without a customized formula, they would experience some degradation, though not as severe as without treatment. Could you develop the customized formula without Diana's information? Victor asked. Possibly, given enough time, but the onset of symptoms would begin before I could perfect it. Diana's information would significantly accelerate the process. Victor faced a true dilemma. Diana had found the perfect leverage, the twins' health. Refusing her terms could endanger Leo and Lily, while accepting them would give Diana exactly what she wanted, a path back into their lives and a narrative of redemption. After careful consideration, Victor developed a third option. We negotiate, but on my terms. I'll agree to provide the treatment information Diana claims to have, but through an intermediary. No direct contact with the twins until they're adults and can make their own informed choice about a relationship with her. The counterproposal was delivered through official channels, positioning Victor as reasonable but firm in protecting the twins from potential psychological manipulation. Diana's response was swift and furious. A public statement through her attorneys claiming Victor was endangering the children's health for the sake of revenge. The resulting media coverage painted Diana as a concerned mother and Victor as potentially negligent. It was precisely the narrative shift Diana had engineered, from criminal conspirator to victimized mother fighting for her children's welfare. Victor recognized the trap, but refused to be manipulated. His team located Diana at a private estate in the French countryside, suggesting she had never intended to negotiate in good faith. The public campaign was merely cover for her continued alliance with the consortium. Extraction is authorized, Victor instructed his operational team. Secure Diana and any information she possesses about the twins' treatment. This ends now. The operation was executed with military precision. Diana was extracted from the French estate while she slept, transported to a secure facility Victor had established for debriefing high-value targets. When she awoke, she found herself in a sterile room with Victor waiting calmly across from her. Kidnapping now, Victor? Diana asked, her voice steady despite her situation. That's a federal offense, even for someone with your connections. This isn't a legal proceeding, Victor replied evenly. This is a parent protecting his children from someone who sees them as bargaining chips. I'm their mother, Diana countered. Everything I've done has been to secure their future, including collaborating with the consortium against their interests, working with Whitmore to maintain the dependency protocol. Diana's expression flickered momentarily. You don't understand the bigger picture. The consortium isn't going away, Victor. They'll rebuild, regroup. I was positioning myself as the twins' advocate within their structure. No, Victor said firmly. You were securing your own position, as always. The customized treatment formula. Where is it? Diana smiled thinly. Not here. Not anywhere you'll find it without my cooperation. And if anything happens to me, it disappears forever. Victor had anticipated this response. Dr. Farrow is developing an alternative formula. The twins will receive treatment with or without your information. The only question is whether you want to contribute to their well-being or be remembered as the mother who withheld critical medical information for leverage. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Diana's face. Farrow is working with you? He betrayed the consortium. He chose the children over the program, Victor confirmed. As any parent should. The implication struck home. Diana's confidence wavered visibly. What are you offering? Nothing you don't already have. Imprisonment for your crimes. But with the knowledge that you did one decent thing for your children at the end. Diana considered her options carefully. And if I provide the formula, what guarantee do I have you'll actually use it? You have my word as their father, Victor replied simply. I will always act in their best interest, regardless of my feelings toward you. After a tense silence, Diana made her decision. There's a secure server in Geneva. The formula is there, along with complete documentation of the twins' genetic modifications and projected developmental milestones. She provided the access protocols, her demeanor shifting from defiance to resignation. They'll never know what was done to them, will they? The consortium's manipulations, my betrayal. You'll protect them from all of it. Until they're old enough to understand the full truth, Victor confirmed. Then they'll know everything, including that their mother eventually chose to help them, even if it gained her nothing. Diana looked away. Small comfort. They'll still hate me. That will be their choice to make, Victor said, standing to leave. Just as this was yours. Within hours, Victor's team had accessed the Geneva server and retrieved the formula, along with extensive documentation about the twins' genetic profile. Dr. Farrow confirmed its authenticity and began preparing the treatment immediately. Diana was returned to federal custody, her brief absence unrecorded in official channels. She made no further public statements or demands, perhaps recognizing that her final gambit had failed. The narrative she had tried to create, the concerned mother fighting for her children, collapsed under the weight of evidence Victor provided about her collaboration with Whitmore and the consortium. 1 week later, Leo and Lily received their first treatments, administered as routine vaccinations by Dr. Farrow. Neither child showed any adverse reactions, and subtle monitoring confirmed the treatment was working as intended, stabilizing the potentially dangerous genetic modifications without affecting their enhanced capabilities. Victor watched his children playing after the treatment, their laughter echoing across the Montana ranch as they chased each other through autumn leaves. They remained unaware of the battles fought for their future, the conspiracies unraveled to secure their freedom from manipulation and control. The war wasn't over. Elements of the consortium remained at large, and the political fallout from Project Legacy continued to reverberate through government agencies and international relations. But Victor had won the most important battle, securing his children's future free from biological manipulation and control. As darkness fell over the Montana property, Victor made a decision that would shape the final phase of his campaign against those who had threatened his family. The twins were safe, their treatment secured. Now it was time to ensure that the architects of Project Legacy could never threaten them or any other children again. Prepare the endgame protocol, Victor instructed Floyd. Every remaining consortium member, research facility, financial support structure, I want it all dismantled within 30 days. Some targets are beyond our legal reach, Floyd cautioned, particularly the overseas operations. Then we operate beyond legal parameters, Victor replied coldly. These people treated my children as experiments. They won't receive the courtesy of legal proceedings. The final offensive against Project Legacy's architects began with a carefully orchestrated financial attack. Using evidence from Meridian's servers, Victor's team initiated simultaneous freezes on accounts and assets belonging to consortium members across 12 countries. Conrad Whitmore, attempting to flee to a private island in the Pacific, found his aircraft denied landing clearance at every airfield within range. When he was forced to land at a small regional airport for refueling, a team of federal agents was waiting, acting on anonymous intelligence about weapons smuggling. 3 other consortium leaders suffered similar fates, their escape routes compromised, their safe houses exposed, their protection details neutralized through methods that couldn't be traced back to Victor. Within 2 weeks, the core leadership of Project Legacy was either in custody or in hiding without resources. Dr. Farrow, continuing to cooperate, provided critical intelligence about research facilities worldwide where genetic experimentation continued. Victor's teams didn't directly assault these facilities. Instead, they exposed their activities to local authorities and media simultaneously, creating a global wave of raids and shutdowns that appeared unconnected but served a single coordinated purpose. Diana, now fully aware of the comprehensive dismantling of the consortium, made one final attempt to salvage her position. Through her attorneys, she offered to testify against Whitmore and reveal additional projects beyond Project Legacy in exchange for witness protection and eventual supervised contact with the twins. Victor's response was delivered through official channels. No deals. No concessions. No contact. The message was clear. Diana would receive no mercy, no forgiveness, no path to redemption through her children. Victor had meant what he said at the beginning of his campaign against those who had betrayed him. Some actions were unforgivable, and Diana's betrayal of her own children for personal gain topped that list. Chapter 9. Endgame. 1 year after the Christmas Eve raid that began Victor's campaign of vengeance, he stood at the window of his study in the Montana ranch, watching as Leo and Lily build a snowman in the winter twilight. At 7 years old, they showed remarkable development, both academically and physically, but retained the innocence and joy that Victor had fought so hard to preserve. The ranch had become their permanent home. The Connecticut mansion sold, and its memories purged from their lives. Victor had restructured his business operations to allow him to be present for his children daily, a change that had strengthened their bonds in ways he hadn't anticipated. Floyd entered the study with a secure tablet. Final confirmation from our European team. The Geneva research facility has been shut down by Swiss authorities based on the evidence we provided. That's the last known Project Legacy installation. Victor nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. And the children? The other 36, all receiving treatment through their pediatricians, who believe they're administering a standard immunization protocol. None of the families have been informed of the genetic modifications unless they were already aware. And Diana? Floyd's expression tightened. Her final appeal was denied yesterday. 20 years without possibility of parole. She'll be transferred to a maximum security facility in Colorado next week. Victor absorbed this information without visible emotion. Diana had fought the charges viciously, attempting to leverage her knowledge of Project Legacy for leniency at every turn. But the evidence Victor had meticulously compiled had proven insurmountable. Her conviction on charges of conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, and financial crimes have been upheld through every appeal. She's requested a final meeting before her transfer, Floyd added. Says she has information about a contingency protocol involving the twins that she hasn't revealed yet. Another manipulation, Victor said dismissively. She's desperate now that her legal options are exhausted. Probably, Floyd agreed. But if there's any chance it's legitimate, Victor considered the possibility. Diana had proven remarkably resourceful throughout their conflict, revealing new layers of deception when cornered. The possibility that she had withheld critical information about the twins couldn't be dismissed entirely. Arrange it, Victor decided. But under our protocols, not prison visitation. I want complete control of the environment. 3 days later, Victor sat across from Diana in a secure conference room at his private security facility outside Hartford. She looked markedly different after a year in detention. Thinner, her once perfect appearance now austere, her auburn hair threaded with premature gray. You look well, Victor, she said, echoing their previous meeting. Montana clearly agrees with you. What information do you claim to have? Victor asked, bypassing pleasantries. Diana smiled thinly, still direct. Some things never change. She leaned forward. The twins have an activation protocol I didn't mention previously. a psychological trigger designed to initiate specific behavioral patterns at puberty. More manipulation, Victor said, starting to rise. This meeting is over. It's coded to your voice, Diana continued quickly. Specific phrases spoken in your voice will trigger subconscious programming designed to create absolute loyalty and obedience. The consortium designed it as a control mechanism for their future operatives. Victor paused. If such a protocol exists, Dr. Farrow would have discovered it in their genetic profile. It's not genetic, Diana countered. It's behavioral conditioning implemented during their first 3 years through seemingly normal pediatric visits. The conditioning is dormant until activated by specific auditory triggers. The possibility sent a chill through Victor despite his skepticism. And you're revealing this now out of maternal concern? Diana's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. I'm revealing it because they deserve to be completely free. Whatever else I've done, I don't want them controlled by anyone. Not the consortium, not the government, and not you. If this is another attempt to negotiate. No negotiations, Diana interrupted. No conditions. The deactivation process requires specific neurological stimulation administered by someone with training in the protocol. I've arranged for the necessary information to be delivered to Dr. Farrow, regardless of your decision about this meeting. Victor studied her carefully, searching for the deception, the hidden agenda. Why? After everything, why help them now when there's nothing to gain? Diana's eyes met his directly. Because they're still my children, and because I've lost everything else. This is the only thing left I can do for them that means anything. After another moment of evaluation, Victor nodded once. Farrow will verify your information. If it proves legitimate, it will be implemented. And you'll tell them someday that I helped them. The question held a vulnerability Victor had never heard from Diana before. I'll tell them the complete truth when they're old enough to understand it. Every betrayal and every assistance. They'll make their own judgments then. Diana seemed to accept this. Her expression resigned. That's fair. More than fair, given everything. As Victor prepared to leave, Diana asked one final question. Are they happy, Victor? Truly. For the first time in their conversation, Victor's expression softened marginally. They're children. They're resilient, adaptable. They have stability, security, people who genuinely care for them. Yes, they're happy. Diana nodded, blinking rapidly. Good. That's good. It was the last time Victor would see Diana in person. Her transfer to the Colorado facility proceeded as scheduled, placing her in a maximum security environment where her ability to communicate with the outside world would be severely restricted for the next 2 decades. Dr. Farrow verified Diana's information about the behavioral conditioning protocol and developed a neurological treatment to neutralize the triggers. The twins underwent the procedure as part of what they believed was a standard medical checkup, remaining unaware of the psychological programming that had been embedded in their developing minds or the fact that they were now free of it. 6 months later, Victor received confirmation that the last member of the consortium's leadership had been located and neutralized. Conrad Whitmore had suffered a fatal accident while attempting to establish a new identity in Argentina. The official report cited mechanical failure of his private yacht, though certain details suggested a more orchestrated conclusion. With this final piece, Victor's campaign of vengeance was complete. Every person who had participated in the betrayal and exploitation of his family had faced consequences, some legal, some more direct. The network that had threatened his children was dismantled beyond recovery, its resources seized, its members imprisoned or eliminated. On a crisp autumn morning 2 years after the Christmas Eve raid, Victor sat with the twins on the porch of the Montana ranch, helping them with a science project. Leo was meticulously recording data while Lily constructed an elaborate model of a solar system. Dad, Leo asked suddenly, what happened to Mom? The real story, not the one Grandma tells us. Victor had prepared for this moment, knowing the twins would eventually demand more complete answers as they matured. Your mother made choices that put both of you in danger, he said carefully. She worked with people who wanted to use you for their own purposes. Was she bad? Lily asked, her expression serious. People aren't simply good or bad, Victor replied, choosing his words with precision. Your mother did bad things, made choices that hurt people, including you. But she also eventually helped protect you when she didn't have to. Do you hate her? Leo pressed. Victor considered the question carefully. The rage that had fueled his campaign against Diana and her conspirators had transformed into something colder and more permanent. Not active hatred, but an unforgiving memory that would never soften with time. I don't forgive what she did, he said finally. But hating her takes energy I'd rather spend on both of you. The twins seemed to accept this answer, returning to their project with the adaptability of childhood. Victor watched them work. These remarkable children who had been created as pawns in a conspiracy but would grow up to make their own choices, free from the manipulations intended to control them. In his study that evening, Victor reviewed the final reports from Floyd about the Project Legacy aftermath. All 38 children were thriving, their treatments continuing without incident. The political fallout had resulted in new international treaties governing genetic research and enhanced oversight of intelligence operations. Senator Brighton had died in prison 6 months earlier, his legacy destroyed, his name synonymous with treason. As Victor closed the file, he reflected on the campaign that had consumed 2 years of his life. He had been ruthless, methodical, and at times operated outside legal boundaries in his pursuit of those who had threatened his family. He had shown no mercy, accepted no excuses, offered no forgiveness to those who had betrayed him, including the mother of his children. But the twins were safe, their future secure. They would grow up knowing they were loved and protected, even if they never fully understood the language